The young man revealed a smile and said, "As the owner of this place, I think I should be qualified to ask about your origins. Right?" What, he was the owner of this place? Ling Han was internally stunned. Just how inconceivable was this? However, he actually believed his words more than he disbelieved it. Why? Because of the giant wolf's reaction. This young man was a sect master. He was 100% sure of this. Thus, the fact that the giant wolf had taken the initiative to stop was definitely not because of the young man's strength, but because this giant wolf recognized him. The problem was that he didn't find any information about this young man in the giant wolf's memories. It seemed like it was purely instinctive for this giant wolf to feel reverence. Interesting. A thought flashed in Ling Han's head. Previously, there had already appeared such rulers of lands of peril like the Sea of Blood and the Ain River. Could it be that one of them would also appear here? "My name is Ling Han." He smiled slightly. "Ling Han." The young man revealed an astounded expression, then smiled as well. "I've heard of you, but according to rumors, you're already dead." Ling Han laughed loudly. "The rumors also say that I'm shameless. The large black dog, little azure dragon, and pervert pig all rolled their eyes. You are really very shameless. That has absolutely nothing to do with the rumors." The young man opposite him nodded and said, "I am Di Wuji." D? There was only one surname of D, and that was the Wolf Tribe Demon Emperor. This place was filled with wolves, and there were even venerate tier-level great beasts. Could it be? This was the Demon Wolf Imperial Clan? "Dare I ask, Brother D, what is this place?" Ling Han asked calmly. Di Wuji smiled faintly. Brother Ling should have guessed a little. However, this place is not the Demon Wolf Imperial Clan, but rather another related place. I would like to know, why is Brother Ling actually able to control the wolf tribe? He naturally knew how ferocious his wolf pack was. Aside from his own bloodline that could suppress them, there was no way anyone else could control them. Ling Han's mind whirred. This wasn't the Demon Wolf Imperial Clan? However, there were countless wolves here, and even he had lost his sense of direction. Could it be that it was not because of a great emperor-level formation? Aside from the Imperial Clan, where else would there be emperor-level formations? Moreover, he dug 3 feet into the ground, and a terrifying aura seeped out from the ground, easily injuring him. So, this place was actually not the Imperial Clan of the Demon Wolf race? Obviously, Di Wuji could not possibly tell him the full truth. Otherwise, the latter would not have avoided this topic. Ling Han smiled and opened his mouth to say, "Oh, I have a natural special ability and am skilled in controlling all beasts." He deliberately swept an eye over the large black dog, the little azure dragon, and the perverted pig. How could these 3 guys not understand? Immediately, they all put on respectful expressions. Woof, ong, goo, the barking of a dog, the roar of a dragon, and the squealing of a pig seemed to be expressing their submission to Ling Han. Di Wuji. He suddenly felt like he was about to go crazy. "You're not playing by the rules, are you?" Although these 3 guys were all in the form of beasts, it was clear with a single glance that they were demonic beasts and not ferocious beasts. The so-called beast control proficiency was practically non-existent. "Hehe, the rumors are not false. You are indeed very shameless." Di Wuji sighed. Ling Han put on a serious expression and rebuked righteously. "Who said that? Who said that? I want to reason with him. How can he insult me behind my back like this?" The large black dog and the others all chuckled. "If you weren't shameless, there wouldn't be anyone shameless in this world." Di Wuji shook his head and did not linger on this topic. Instead, he asked, "Brother Ling should have a horn on you, right?" Ling Han tensed. No outsider knew that he possessed a horn. In fact, even after he had used the horn to control Di Luo, the Demon Wolf Imperial Clan was still completely baffled and did not know what was going on. But when it came to Di Wuji, why had he immediately guessed it correctly? He had long since suspected that the Great Emperor Horn was most likely forged from the bones of the Wolf Emperor, and that was why it could overlook the precious tool of the Wolf tribe and be effective even on the Imperial Sun. However, the strange thing was that the demon wolf imperial clan didn't seem to know about the great emperor horn at all. Instead, in the case of demon race, he revealed the secret of the great emperor horn with a single word. Fuck, could it be that this Wuji had come from the ancient era, so he knew a great many secret techniques of the wolf tribe that would not be passed on to others? Of course not. Ling Han's mind whirred, but his answer was without hesitation. What's the use of this horn? It can actually control the wolf tribe. Wuji chuckled. This horn was refined from a bone that my father extracted from himself. It has a natural suppressive effect on the wolf tribe. My father, the large black dog, little azure dragon, and perverted pig all looked at each other in shock. This guy was the son of the wolf emperor? Heavens! Though the golden generation was claimed to be close to the level of the great emperors in the past, they were all beaten up later on. They were even looked down on by Yang Yihuan and the other old prodigies, and thought that it was them that were flattering themselves. They were far inferior to the great emperors of the past. But now, the person standing in front of them could possibly be the son of a great emperor? This was an existence similar to the little azure dragon and the little red bird. Moreover, he seemed to have been developing secretly all this while, hidden in this mystery realm. There was no shortage of cultivation resources, unlike the little azure dragon, who had lost his father before he was even born. Ling Han nodded. So you are the son of the great emperor? Wuji did not deny it, but rather asked, Brother Ling, could you return the horn to me? Of course. I will take out some treasures as compensation for Brother Ling. What treasure? Ling Han asked directly. Now that things had come to this, if he continued to say that he did not have the great emperor horn on him, that would really be bullying. Thus, he directly expressed his stand. Wuji thought for a moment. Brother Ling is presently a sect master. So how about I bestow 7 portions of 8 stars celestial chi on Brother Ling? Celestial chi was indeed something that Ling Han was in desperate need of. Furthermore, if it was 8-star celestial chi, he would be able to boost it to 9 stars with some pill refinement. The problem was, being able to elevate the quality of the celestial chi was Ling Han's ability. Then, 7 portions of 8-star celestial chi would have to be traded for a treasure that had been personally refined by a great emperor. Ling Han was definitely at a disadvantage, and a huge disadvantage at that. His expression became serious, and he said, Brother D, you're far too unfilial. This turn of events is really too sudden. Isn't it? A muscle twitched in Wuji's cheek. Then he muttered, What part of me is unfilial? Since that horn was left behind by Brother D's father, to say nothing of the fact that it itself is a treasure, even if it was just a broken shoe, it would still be worth Brother D spending everything to exchange for it. Ling Han said seriously, his face filled with anger. The more Brother D spends on this relic, the more it proves Brother D's filial piety. Don't you agree? Wuji couldn't help but be speechless. How was he supposed to deal with this? If he agreed, then he would just have to wait for Ling Han to make an exorbitant demand. But if he didn't agree, wouldn't that confirm his reputation as an unfilial son? He shook his head and said, Brother Ling, your eloquence is truly admirable. That was right. The large black dog, little azure dragon, and pervert pig all nodded internally. However, the large black dog immediately interrupted and said, Brother, in this life, filial piety is the most important thing. Brother, a muscle twitched in Wuji's cheek. Though he was a member of the wolf tribe, he was not a family member at all with a despicable dog like you who was wearing iron underwear and looked indecent at first glance, all right? The large black dog's expression was filled with sincerity, as if he really considered Wuji as one of his brothers. Best scenario was for Wuji to also return to his wolf form. They could rub their noses and wag their tails. They would be truly in harmony. Wuji's expression was ugly. His shrewdness could be considered extremely deep. After all, he was the son of a great emperor, so how could his self-restraint be weak? Moreover, he had experienced one era after another, so how could that kind of accumulation be something that ordinary imperial sons could compare to? However, at this moment he felt like he was about to go crazy. Ling Han and the large black dog were both fucking unpredictable. He had lived for so long, but he had never seen this kind of character. He took a deep breath and said, 10 portions of 8-star celestial qi. Ling Han immediately looked displeased. With a wave of his hand, he said, Brother D, you are really too unfilial towards your father, Lord Wolf Emperor. I hate unfilial people the most. He turned around and glanced at the large black dog and the others. Let's go. Fuck. Di Wuji finally couldn't bear it any longer, and his expression changed drastically as he exclaimed, Brother Ling, don't forget, that was originally belonging to our D clan. Brother D, you're wrong to say that, Ling Han said with a serious expression. The surname of the emperor isn't written on that horn. Moreover, I didn't steal or snatch it. I obtained it with my own abilities, so it naturally belongs to me. Going by Brother D's logic, as long as it is something that belongs to me, I can get it back. Then I will sell something to you, then take it back. Then sell it to you and then take it back. In a single breath he said sell it to you, then take back many times. Then he paused and looked towards the large black dog. How much does he owe me now? The large black dog put on an act, counting them off one by one with his toes. Then he said, there would have to be over 100,000 portions of celestial qi. Ling Han nodded and said, then let's give him a discount. Rounding off the number, let's charge him 100,000. Di Wuji was finally enraged. A vein was popping on his forehead. Boom, a frightening aura surged out, and the images of 7 stars actually appeared behind him, exuding a frightening pressure. This imperial sun was no pushover. Ling Han's heart immediately clenched. This guy was definitely on the same level as Yang Yihuan, Feng Miaoling, and so on. In fact, he was even stronger than them. He was comparable to Ding Shu, Myriad Dao, and others at the same cultivation level. However, Ling Han was completely unafraid. By now, he was already a 6-star sect master. To say nothing of being invincible against all sect masters. In truth, he was not too far off either. Ling Han, this is your final warning. Don't force me. Di Wuji was obviously suppressing his anger before saying this. Brother, what's wrong with you? Why are you so furious? Sai, if you have a problem, just say it. On the basis that we share the same blood, Grandpa Dog will definitely help you. But you have to say it. If you don't say it, how would Grandpa Dog know? Although you keep looking at Grandpa Dog with such urgency, you really have to say it out loud. If you don't say it, Grandpa Dog won't be able to read your mind. How can I know? So, are you going to say it or not? The large black dog's mouth was full of nonsense, and very tongue-twisting. Di Wuji's face was red, green and black, changing continuously. Now, he really wanted to kill someone. Oh no, kill a dog. Humph, you guys are courting death, he shouted lightly, and the aura of his bloodline surged, affecting that venerate tier-level giant wolf. His bloodline could suppress any member of the wolf tribe by nature. This was the ability of the son of the great emperor. However, that giant wolf was also being controlled by the great emperor horn. This was similarly supreme control. Unless the wolf emperor came back to life, it would be hard to decide who was stronger between these two types of control. Thus, the giant wolf was in a difficult position. Who should he listen to? Unfortunately, though it was venerate tier level, its intelligence was only on the level of a 5-year-old child. This really made things difficult for it. When Di Wuji saw this, he couldn't help but frown. He had indeed thought of this possibility, but before witnessing it with his own eyes, he always wanted to give it a try. Though this move was ineffective, it was fine. His strength could crush everything. Worst come to worst, he would just have to deal with it himself. He stretched out a hand and grabbed out at Ling Han. Wang, wang, wang. One after another, regulations manifested, and there were a total of 18 of them. Impressive. Even if this guy was a 9-star sect master, his natural talent in cultivation was still inconceivably high. He really could match Ding Shu and the others. Merely in terms of battle prowess, this was the strongest sect master that Ling Han had seen so far. That kind of venerate tier-suppressing sect master didn't count. Unfortunately, his opponent was Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly and replied with a punch of his own. Boom, with a punch, 19 regulations formed. What? Di Wuji's eyes instantly widened in shock. How was this possible? 19 six-star regulations? This was practically unbelievable. He was a 9-star sect master, so even if Ling Han's cultivation level was the same as his, he still had one more regulation than he did. In other words, Ling Han's natural talent in cultivation was higher than his. He could not believe it. Who was he? He was the son of the Wolf Emperor, and he had received special attention from the Great Emperor since a young age. In fact, he had even changed his fate. Thus, in a battle of equal cultivation levels, he should be invincible. And now, there was actually someone that was even slightly more freakish than him. Though there was only a gap of a single star, inferiority was inferiority, and there was no excuse for it. Instantly, his killing intent blazed madly. He definitely had to kill Ling Han. In terms of regulations, he was indeed slightly inferior to Ling Han, but battle prowess wasn't completely determined by the number of regulations. Just like how power was the most important attribute of a cultivator, but it wasn't absolute. Demonic wolf devours the moon. Di Wuji shouted loudly, his figure rapidly enlarging. Then he opened his massive mouth and was about to swallow Ling Han. Ling Han humphed upon hearing this. Who cares about your cultivation technique? My fist is invincible, and it can shatter everything. Boom! He had already walked out his own path. Every punch and kick was comparable to the imperial technique. The terrifying power of the punch swept over, and the regulations turned into an endless number of god tools, forcibly shattering that massive mouth. Di Wuji returned to his original form, and there was some blood at the corner of his lips. His ultimate move had been shattered with a single punch from Ling Han, so it naturally backfired on him. However, he was strong enough so this only caused him slight injury. This stunned him. The demon wolf devouring moon was an imperial technique. As long as he swallowed his target, a large amount of blood essence would be deprived from his body, causing his battle prowess to drop drastically. He only had to do it a few times, and he would definitely be done for. This move could be said to have been tested time and time again. It had killed who knew how many powerful opponents. However, faced with Ling Han, this imperial technique was actually easily resolved. I have underestimated you. Di Wuji nodded. Looks like he could not defeat Ling Han with such a simple move. He humphed, and once again charged towards Ling Han. The 7 stars behind him solidified, as if they were the reflection of the heavens, infinitely boosting his power. Pong! Ling Han exchanged a blow with Di Wuji, and a frightening power assailed him, instantly sending him flying. Hiss, what strong power! Ling Han steadied his footing, and felt a boiling sensation in his chest. He almost threw up blood. He was astonished. Even if his cultivation level was inferior to Di Wuji's, there was only a gap of 3 minor levels at most. However, in terms of the power gap of this attack, it was at least 10 stars and above. When one had reached the spirit transformation tier, especially sect master level or above, the importance of power would have to give way to regulations. It would definitely be regulations that would decide the battle prowess of a cultivator. Though that was the case if the regulations were of the same level, but the power gap was equivalent to the gap between Venerate tier and sect master, this was definitely a crushing defeat. Ling Han could feel that Di Wuji's power had surpassed him by at least 10 stars, just like how a Venerate tier was attacking him. However, how could a sect master possess such powerful strength? Ling Han looked at the 7 stars behind Di Wuji. They had already completely solidified and were exuding a terrifying aura. The problem must lie here. When he saw how Ling Han was staring fixedly at the stars behind him, Di Wuji smiled proudly. This is my father using his supreme might, forcibly refining the 7 great stars and placing them into my body. They can endlessly provide me with power. Fuck. The large black dog, little azure dragon, and pervert pig all paled at the same time. This was too freakish. It should be known that if a star exploded, even Venerate tier elites would be forcefully shattered. From this, it could be seen just how much terrifying power a star contained. Of course, this wasn't an explosion. Instead, it was a continuous flow of power, so it was definitely much weaker. However, there were a total of 7 stars, so the power supply together was naturally extremely terrifying. He believed that this was still because Di Wuji was only a sect master, and could only sustain a limited amount of power. Otherwise, if he advanced into Venerate tier, he would definitely be able to sustain even more power, and the power that he blasted out would be even more terrifying. So what if my regulations are slightly inferior to you? My power is definitely overwhelming. Ling Han revealed a blazing fighting spirit. In a battle of equals, he had always been invincible. Even if Yang Yihuan, Feng Miaoling, and the other ancient prodigies appeared, and there was also the competition with Origin, Ding Shu, and the others who were similarly Genesis World's rulers, he was still invincible among his peers. Even if Ding Shu and the others wanted to battle him, without the advantage of 3 or 4 minor levels, there was no way they could exchange blows with him. Now, however, Di Wuji possessed overwhelming power. He was completely outmatched, and this instead stimulated his intense fighting spirit. Come! Ling Han released a battle cry, and the Phoenix Wing's divine flight was used. His speed was extremely fast, and he circled around Di Wuji. Then he shot out punch after punch. He used his strengths and avoided his weaknesses, and did not confront Di Wuji head-on. Instead, he used his advantage in speed, and blasted out regulations, which turned into divine light to attack this powerful opponent. Di Wuji was astounded. True Phoenix's movement technique? You are quite lucky to actually have obtained True Phoenix's inheritance. This was a precious technique that even his father very much wanted to see. Unfortunately, he still lacked a sliver of fate to witness it. However, you want to defeat me just like that? He smiled faintly, and his eyes suddenly widened. He shouted loudly, "Freeze! Wang!" The 7 stars lit up at the same time, unleashing a devastating power. Instantly, the air around them became incredibly heavy. Boundless power had even solidified. Ling Han's speed rapidly decreased. 7 stars took effect at the same time, causing the space around him to become incredibly frozen. Even Phoenix Wing's divine flight was greatly affected. There was nothing else that could be done. Di Wuji's power had definitely advanced into the level of Venerate tier, and now, with his overwhelming power that was superior to Ling Han's cultivation level by a major tier, he was naturally capable of affecting Ling Han. Ha ha ha! Di Wuji laughed loudly, and delivered a palm strike towards Ling Han. Boom! Endless power reverberated, compressing layer by layer. It had even solidified and could be seen clearly with the naked eye. Because Ling Han's speed was limited, he did not manage to completely dodge this blow. After being swept by it, his whole person was instantly sent flying. Terrifying. Ling Han fell onto the ground, and with a wah, he threw up blood madly. The large black dog, the little dragon, and the pervert pig all looked anxious. They believed that in a battle of equal cultivation levels, Ling Han would definitely be able to crush Di Wuji. But who asked him to be the son of a great emperor? 7 stars had actually been refined into his body. In truth, if Di Wuji had advanced into Saint tier, then this kind of advantage in power would completely disappear, because a single strike from a saint would be able to easily destroy a star. This gap was too wide, so the power of 7 stars was naturally meaningless. However, at the sect master level or even venerate tier level, these 7 stars could greatly increase Di Wuji's power and cause a crushing blow to his opponent. Ling Han was only able to vomit blood and not be insta-killed with a single strike. That was because he had cultivated the Heavenly Dragon Emperor's scroll and could disperse another portion of the power of the attack. If it was any other sect master, they would have been insta-killed long ago, alright? This could not be considered Di Wuji's own battle prowess, but who asked him to have a great emperor as his father? Four-legged snake, why are you so weak? The large black dog asked the little azure dragon. The little azure dragon was rendered speechless. His father died before he was even born, and it's my fault? Ling Han, your natural talent is indeed amazing. However, in front of the accumulated power of a great emperor, what are you worth? Di Wuji's expression was filled with pride. Ling Han cracked a smile. This isn't your strength. Besides, I haven't lost yet. He stepped out and threw another punch. This time, he used the 7-star regulations, though there were only 2 slivers. Wuxia smirked coldly. This was really too foolish. He clearly knew that his power was overwhelming, and still wanted to confront him head-on. You were killed by your own stupidity. He delivered a palm strike, extremely casual, but with the boost of terrifying power, the might of the strike was boundlessly strong. Ling Han did not dodge or retreat, and shot out this punch grandly, turning into a giant golden fist that blasted towards Wuxia at an extraordinarily fast speed. Pong! The golden fist landed on the palm strike, and was instantly shattered by the vigorous power. Even if you had one more regulation, so what? If the power gap was too wide, you would still be overwhelmed. However, after the colossal fist crumbled, a streak of shattered light continued to blast towards Wuxia. What? Wuxia was taken aback, his eyes almost popping out in shock. How was this possible? Ling Han's power clearly hadn't changed, and the number of regulations was still 19. So, why was the power of his punch soaring? Why was it able to pierce through his attack? This punch had already arrived. He was completely unprepared, and was too confident. Thus, he did not manage to dodge in time and was hit head-on. Woo! He instantly gave a muffled humph, opened his mouth, and spat out a mouthful of blood. A bloody hole shockingly appeared in his abdomen. It had been created by the shattered power of Ling Han's fist. Looking again at Ling Han, he was also sent flying by the vigorous power, and similarly spat out a mouthful of blood. This blow could be considered to have wounded both sides. Good job! The large black dog, the little azure dragon, and the pervert pig all cheered loudly, instantly becoming excited. You, Wuxia, are depending on the power of the great emperor, but Ling Han is truly capable. With such a comparison, it was clear who was superior. Wuxia's eyes shone brightly. He lowered his head to look at the wound, then said darkly, "So, it turns out that you have actually grasped a sliver of the 7-star regulations. It was precisely because the level of regulations was too high, so even if there was only a sliver, it still managed to break through his attack and cause damage to him. Freak! How could there be such a freak?" Wuxia's killing intent blazed even brighter. This kind of opponent was unimaginable to him. Could even the great emperors of the past compare to Ling Han? Thus, Ling Han definitely had to die. Otherwise, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become emperor would appear in this era, and it was also very likely that it would be snatched away by Ling Han. Becoming emperor was the ultimate dream for these supreme prodigies, and they were willing to risk their lives for it. Die! Wuxia aggressively charged over. Even if Ling Han had grasped a little bit of the 7-star regulations, so what? His power had an absolute advantage, and he could crush him. Ling Han released a battle cry and exchanged blows with Wuxia. His attack was very simple, and that was to use his own path of martial arts, as well as the 7-star regulations, to clash head-on with Wuxia. In terms of power, it was naturally Wuxia who had won, and in terms of piercing ability, it was Ling Han who had gained an absolute advantage. This was the 7-star regulations, and against a sect master, he similarly had a crushing advantage. Thus, neither of them dodged or evaded, exchanging blows head-on, which naturally caused great injury to both of them. The shock waves of the terrifying power blasted out, and the 7-star regulations turned into a blade that possessed boundless destructive power. The large black dog and the others had no choice but to retreat, not daring to face its might at all. Couldn't be helped. Though the little azure dragon was also the son of a great emperor, and had astonishing natural talent in cultivation, he was only a spirit transformation tier, after all. His cultivation level was far too inferior, so much so that he couldn't withstand these attacks at all. Pong! 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 With every exchange of blows, Ling Han and Wuxia were both throwing up blood continuously, their injuries extremely severe. In terms of attack power, the two of them could be considered evenly matched. They were both extremely strong, and in terms of defense, Ling Han was actually stronger, but it was just enough to compensate for his inferiority in attack power. Thus, if they traded injuries for injuries like this, the final result would be both sides suffering heavy losses, or even perishing together. At this time, it was up to the recovery ability. Ling Han channeled the 10 cultivation technique, and his injuries were immediately under control. Combined with his powerful physique, he could completely become an undying cockroach. Though Di Wuji also had healing techniques, every great emperor had their forte. For example, in the case of the Wolf Emperor, he preferred to attack. Thus, the imperial technique that he had created was more inclined towards attack. In any case, the great emperors were all invincible in the universe. Whether their attack was stronger or weaker, or how powerful their recovery abilities were, it didn't matter. This was completely dependent on the personality of the great emperor. The gap between imperial techniques was relatively small, but after fighting for a long time, this gap was apparent. Di Wuji was so stunned that he discovered that if this continued, he would lose. Fuck! He would actually lose. He frowned deeply. This kind of conclusion had really disappointed him too much and also dealt too much of a blow. This was equivalent to having a great emperor help him cheat, yet he was still inferior to a cultivator at the same cultivation level. How could he accept this? He gritted his teeth, and the 7 great stars lit up brightly at the same time, emitting a blinding light. Then, boom! A ray of light shot out, turning into a supreme divine light that slashed towards Ling Han. This speed was too fast, and there was no way to dodge at all. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless, because when he faced these 7 great stars, it couldn't be considered a battle at the same cultivation level at all. Instead, he was fighting against a venerate tier or at least a pseudo-venerate tier. Thus, with a single thought, purple calamity grains immediately formed a defense. Pong! The attack landed on Ling Han's body, and a blinding light flashed. A smile instantly appeared on Di Wuji's face. Though this attack had not improved on the level of regulations in terms of power, it was equivalent to a 3-star venerate tier. Ling Han was definitely going to die if he faced this attack head-on. However, in an instant, a figure charged out of the light. Who else could it be but Ling Han? Di Wuji had not thought of this at all. This was completely impossible. Peng Ling Han's punch had already arrived. Even if he leaped out of the way to dodge, and dodged the front of the fist, the terrifying power and regulations still landed on him. Di Wuji gave a muffled humph, and was instantly sent flying. He was throwing up blood madly, his eyes filled with both shock and confusion. Why had Ling Han not died? This was illogical. Ling Han smiled calmly. You have the means of a great emperor, so how could I not have a trump card? Aside from purple calamity grains, he also had a pseudo-imperial weapon, destructive energy, and so on. Di Wuji glared at Ling Han. At this moment, he really did not know what to say. As the son of the great emperor, his battle prowess was already incredibly powerful. Add to that the techniques of the great emperor, to say nothing of being invincible among his peers, even if his opponent's cultivation level actually surpassed him by a major tier, he still had the ability to save his life. But now, faced with Ling Han, he did not have the slightest bit of confidence. In fact, this opponent had even more tricks up his sleeve than he did. He took a deep breath, and suddenly cut open his finger, squeezing out a drop of silver blood. Fuck! Idiot! The large black dog immediately exclaimed. You've clearly bled so much, so why are you still cutting your finger and squeezing out blood? When Di Wuji heard this, he almost couldn't help but throw up blood. However, he was also a little confused. That's right. He had already bled so much, so why did he still deliberately cut his finger? Could it be that he was too used to it, that he did not think too much about it at all? He flew into a humiliated rage and shouted, That's not important. What's important is that you all have to die. He seemed to have activated some kind of special ceremony, and was muttering under his breath. Then, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out from not too far away. Boom! The sound of something shattering rang out. Then, not too far away, a figure suddenly appeared, supporting both heaven and earth. This was... Ling Han was astonished. He knew that there was an island not far away, and he was certain that the sound just now should be the ground shattering, and that figure crawling out from underneath. Previously, he had already excavated the island, but he had not dug to the bottom. He was shocked by a powerful aura, and did not dare to continue digging. He suspected that there was an elite buried underneath, or perhaps it was a deadly weapon. By the looks of it now, it should be the former. Boom! Right at this moment, that figure had already walked over. With a single step, the ground trembled violently. It was only one step, and that figure was already close enough, revealing its true appearance. This was a giant ape that was as tall as 300 meters. There were bone chains around its neck, and it was wrapped in a layer of armor. It held a spiked club in its hand. Upon a closer look, this staff was forged from white bone. However, there was a wound on his chest that had directly pierced through his heart. Saintly might. Ling Han was immediately certain that this definitely wasn't a venerate tear. Venerate tears weren't that powerful. However, this saint ape was already dead. It was a walking corpse, but a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. So what if he had died? He could still unleash his saintly might, and it was no issue for him to insta-kill Ling Han. Fuck, Di Wuji was actually capable of summoning a dead saint? Ling Han's heart jolted. This place was indeed no different from the Sea of Blood and the Ain River. Then, there should be saint corpses buried beneath those islands, right? That was why the wolves were afraid, and dared not set foot here. Hiss! Without the slightest hesitation, he grabbed the large black dog and the others. Then, he used Phoenix Wing's divine flight to rapidly flee. Fight my ass, even a saintly corpse had appeared. The corpse of the saint ape was a little dumb. This was understandable. After all, it had already died. He was under the control of Di Wuji, and only then did he raise a giant hand, which struck out at Ling Han. His arm was only a few hundred meters long, but just how terrifying was saint-level battle prowess? The force and regulations intertwined, turning into a monstrous demonic hand that set off in pursuit of Ling Han. Ling Han's speed was very fast. Phoenix Wing's divine flight was the fastest movement technique in the world. However, it was a saint that was attacking him. Even if he had long since died, and was a corpse, he was still faster than him. The attack had already reached him. Ling Han did not hesitate in the slightest, and immediately threw out a few energy jades. Then, he channeled purple calamity grains to take this blow from the saint head-on. His heart ached. If he was attacked by a saint, the purple calamity grains would not be able to take effect after a few times. However, if he was about to lose his life, what was the point of discussing anything else? Boom! That demonic hand very quickly crashed into the energy jades, and immediately detonated the jades. A terrifying wave of energy surged out, surging in all directions. So what if this was a sea of fog? At present, it was equivalent to two saints exchanging blows, so how terrifying would the shockwave created be? Ling Han only felt his body tremble, and was instantly sent flying by a massive force. This speed was too fast, and the distance of 5,000 kilometers had passed in an instant. Thankfully, he channeled the purple calamity grains. This could block the attack of a 5-star saint, and was enough to ensure his safety. He discovered that the 4 of them had been directly sent flying out of the area of the Sea of Fog, and were standing all alone in space. Run! Ling Han did not hesitate in the slightest, and turned to leave. He didn't dare to tear open space. If he entered the void, he might be forcefully sucked into the sea of mist again. He saw a terrifying aura attack from the sidelines, instantly approaching above the Sea of Fog. A saint. Fuck, there was an ambush outside as well? That's not right. Ling Han immediately discovered that this saint was alive. He had manifested his Tao manifestation, which was even larger than a planet. With a single step, he could cover millions and millions of km, and that was why he could arrive in an instant. It was not targeted at him, but rather because he was interested in the matter of those that had teleported to the cold-sealed planet going missing. It was because of this that he had deliberately come to investigate. Ling Han immediately covered himself, the large black dog, and the others with the hide of the void beast. He naturally didn't want to be discovered by the saint and captured for questioning. This was a saint that was dressed in white robes. His hair was also silvery white, and it hung down to his waist, making him appear sage-like. Humph! So it is this sea of fog that is causing trouble, the saint said to himself. He stretched out a palm and shot out towards the sea of fog. However, Before his attack had even reached its target, a demonic hand suddenly shot out from the sea of mist. This hand was as large as a planet, and it was about to strike the saint. Boom! The two of them exchanged a blow, creating a terrifying shockwave. Ling Han and the others were instantly sent flying into the depths of the universe by the shockwave. Thankfully, they were still very far away. Thus, though the aftermath was strong, Ling Han was completely capable of dispersing it. In the distance, the sea of mist was rapidly shrinking in size. However, the saint was still standing tall and upright. He was incredibly huge and could be seen clearly. The silver-haired saint unleashed another barrage of attacks. However, multiple saint corpses that were riddled with fatal wounds leaped out of the sea of mist, one after another. They instantly surrounded the silver-haired saint, ganging up on him. Boom! A terrifying aura surged over in wave after wave. Ling Han did not linger around, and after being pushed far enough away, he immediately tore a rip into space and fled with the large black dog and the others. It was very likely that the silver-haired saint was in a perilous situation. Ling Han sighed internally. He could see that there were several dozen saint corpses that had jumped out. Merely with their numbers, they could overwhelm him. Previously, the saint corpses in the sea of blood were clear proof of this. Even if a great number of saints brought the imperial weapons with them, they would not be able to withstand it. Ling Han appeared on the nearest planet. He brought the large black dog and the others, and continuously used transformation to travel back to the main base. And now, another danger zone had appeared, where a great number of saint corpses were buried. And this time it was actually related to the Wolf Emperor. This was set up by the Wolf Emperor when he was alive? What on earth was he trying to do? Ling Han returned. Coincidentally, Brother Monkey had also come out of seclusion. He hurriedly told Brother Monkey about the matter. When Brother Monkey heard this, he pondered for a moment, then said, "When Old Sun has advanced into Saint Tier, I will sweep aside all opposition. Brother Monkey, I know you're very domineering, but don't be so brainless, all right?" However, upon further thought, this kind of thing was not something that could be solved through discussion. There were too many secrets in this world, so they could only wait quietly for the truth to surface on its own. And what they could do was to increase their cultivation level as much as possible. Buddha Doga must know, Ling Han murmured. Unfortunately, if Buddha Doga wanted to tell him, would he have waited until now? Forget it. I'll cultivate. Ling Han had Ji Wuming help him out and spread the news on the Galaxy Network that he wanted to sell some strengthening fluid in exchange for high-level celestial qi. In the previous auction, Ling Han had indeed used a portion of the strengthening fluid to trade for the celestial qi. However, the majority of it was obtained with low-level celestial qi after refining the Little Nine Emperor's 10 Leaves pill, using money to make money. Now that he had finished eating the Little Nine Emperor's 10 Leaves pills, he naturally had to think of another way. At the same time, he took out the broken sword. Previously, it was precisely because of this broken sword that he had first become enemies with Wu Yu. Afterwards, after he had killed Wu Yu, this broken sword naturally became his spoil of battle. Previously, he had not had the time to study it, and only now did he remember. However, after studying it for a long time, he did not discover anything. He could only sense a very obscure yet very powerful fluctuation in the broken sword. If there's a chance in the future, let the old man take a look. Ling Han put away the broken sword and turned his attention to cultivation. After Ji Wuming released the news, it wasn't long before someone replied, saying that they were interested in the strengthening fluid. After a round of bargaining, the two sides reached an agreement. Ling Han brought Ji Wuming with him and traversed a considerable number of galaxies, arriving at a great planet. Then they began the transaction. Of course, he couldn't arrange it on his own planet. He had to be careful. After consecutively completing a few business deals, Ling Han and Ji Wuming finally left. Then, he began to concoct alchemical pills. He left behind a few alchemical pills and used them to continue trading for celestial qi. That was because he did not have much strengthening fluid left and could not redeem much celestial qi. However, if he had the Little Nine Emperor's 10 Leaves pill, it could allow him to maintain a positive cycle. Unfortunately, there was pitifully little celestial chi that could be traded for now. He finished the little 9 Emperor's 10 Leaves pills, but he was still some distance away from the peak stage of 6-star sect master. He continued to search for buyers on the galaxy network. Whether it was the strengthening fluid or the little 9 Emperor's 10 Leaves pills, he would be happy to sell them as long as there was someone willing to use celestial chi to trade for them. A few days later, he successfully concluded a deal and hurriedly set out with Ji Wuming. This rendered Ji Wuming speechless. He still had to cultivate, so why was Ling Han always looking for him? Ling Han chose a new planet. He had just completed his transaction and was just about to leave when he suddenly felt an eerie aura assault him. He had been to many dangerous places, and there were indeed some places that were incredibly cold. It would not be strange even if a spirit transformation tier or even sect master were to freeze to death. However, he was certain that this eerie feeling was completely different. In fact, he was actually quite familiar with it. The Netherworld's aura. He immediately tensed up and did not come to his senses at the first instant. That was because he felt that this was inconceivable, and his brain had ruled out this possibility. What was going on? Why did the aura of the Netherworld appear here? He activated the ley lines, and when he checked, he couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. In this world, there was the living realm and the Netherworld. The living realm was resided by living people, while the Netherworld was resided in souls. The two sides didn't offend each other. However, perhaps it had been too long, or perhaps it was for some other reason. In short, the Netherworld and living realm were actually showing signs of merging. In the living realm, there were many weak points. In these weak points, the living realm and the Netherworld were only separated by layers of thin barriers, and elites could easily break through these barriers. The celestial sea planet of the past was a tragic example. A great number of Yin souls invaded, and even caused a saint to die because of it. What had Ling Han seen? At the connecting point to the Netherworld, a large amount of Yin Chi was seeping out, and correspondingly, countless Yin souls were flying out. They were extremely fragile under the sunlight, and would be turned into dust with a single beam of light. However, the surging Yin Chi was also transforming the environment. Yin Chi covered the sky, blocking the sunlight. Although the Yin souls would still be restricted in the living realm, without the direct sunlight, the Yin soul's survival ability and mobility would also be greatly improved. One after another, mortals were possessed by Yin souls, turning into walking corpses. In just an instant, the number of deaths numbered in the millions and millions. Was this a unique phenomenon, or had the Netherworld being's invasion begun again? Ling Han did not hesitate. Immediately, with star steps, he appeared at that most initial connecting point. By now, the surrounding area had already been completely transformed by the Netherworld. Ling Han discovered that his control over the regulations was rapidly decreasing. If he couldn't use the regulations, his battle prowess would naturally decline correspondingly. Seeing the appearance of living beings, the Yin souls that came out of the connecting point immediately whistled towards Ling Han. Ling Han humphed and threw a punch. Pong! Instantly, large amounts of Yin souls instantly disintegrated in midair. He was a 6-star sect master now, so just how terrifying was the power of his punch? However, the endless Yin souls continued to charge forward, not taking death to heart at all. They had not developed intelligence, and merely instinctively wanted to seize a physical body. Come! Ling Han beckoned with his hand, and instantly, streaks of earth chi surged out, turning into earth dragons that blocked the connecting point. Just how powerful was the power of a planet? However, the planet itself would not show its might, and had to be activated either by a formation master or formations. Now that the earth chi had transformed into dragons, it had become a killing ground, and any Yin soul would shatter at the slightest touch. At this time, the elites on this planet also flew over. Some people were completely unaware of the Netherworld and Yin souls, and were completely confused about the situation. When they saw that Ling Han was standing there alone, they thought that it was his doing, and immediately rebuked him. Additionally, there was no shortage of experienced people here. They immediately stopped them and explained, "What? This is the connecting point of the Netherworld. Then what do we do?" Everyone could clearly see that the Een souls that wreaked havoc everywhere possessed the unique trait of ignoring power attacks. Only high-level energy could injure them, and once they possessed someone, that person would be a dead man. Boom! Right at this moment, the earth dragons that had sealed off the connecting point were actually shattered in unison. Een souls as tall as 9 meters walked out, exuding a powerful aura. Sect Master level. Not just 1 but 7. The overall level of cultivation of this planet was not very high, and the strongest was only Sect Master level. Seeing 7 Sect Master level Een souls appear all at once, it naturally caused everyone's expression to change. The invasion of the Een souls was not something that they could withstand at all. They had best flee. So what if the sky collapsed? There would always be someone taller to hold it up. Ling Han humphed and immediately charged out. As he brandished his fists, pung, pung, pung. One punch was enough to kill one, and the 7 great Een souls were immediately destroyed. With another wave of his hand, the earth dragons appeared once more. Fuck! This was too powerful, wasn't it? Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Ling Han's move naturally allowed everyone to see clearly that he was also a sect master. However, as a fellow sect master, his strength was too inconceivable. He must be the Dao child. That's right, only a Dao child would have such strong battle prowess. Quite a number of people said conceitedly, using the worldview that they had knowledge of to explain Ling Han's strength. Ling Han said darkly, I need Xianlong iron, cloud smooth stone, heavenly square metal. He recited a long list of ingredients. Everyone exchanged looks. What do you mean? Was he trying to extort them? Hiss, you can't play around like this. Taking advantage of a crisis to make a demand, this was really too despicable. Ling Han frowned and said, What nonsense are you thinking? I want to set up a formation and lock this connection point. Only now did everyone know that they had misunderstood Ling Han. They all felt apologetic. The survival of the planet concerned the interests of every single one of them. Thus, they immediately moved, delivering the materials that Ling Han needed. Ling Han immediately began to create formation foundations. With him here, he naturally could guard this connecting point. However, he could not possibly stand guard here forever, and the moment he left, the Earth Dragons would lose his support, and very soon, they would completely exhaust their Earth Chi and disappear. Thus, he needed to set up a formation, extract the power of heaven and earth to lock this connecting point. With the strength of his spiritual power, he was actually already capable of setting up a Venerate tier-level formation, but firstly, there was a shortage of time and insufficient materials, and secondly, he had not grasped the corresponding formation, so he had only set up a Sect Master level formation. If the Een souls that rushed out were only Sect Master level at most, then this formation would be enough. Firstly, the Een souls' battle prowess was inferior to cultivators of the same cultivation level in the first place, and secondly, this was the living realm after all. When the Een soul came to the living realm, its battle prowess would definitely be affected, and drop by more than 1 or 2 levels. Not long after, the formation foundations were completed. After Ling Han had planted the formation foundations, he used his powerful spiritual power to stimulate the ley lines. Boom! Instantly, every formation foundation emitted light, intertwining to form a super great formation. Previously, when the Earth Dragons had sealed off the area, there were still a few scattered Een souls that could rush out, but once the Great Formation was activated, there would definitely be none that could escape. Though there were still Een souls here, without the subsequent replenishment, every time they killed one, there would be one less, so there was no need to worry. After doing all this, Ling Han hurriedly returned with Ji Wuming. He didn't want a fire to start in his own backyard. Thankfully, the planet they were on was unscathed, and had not been invaded by the Een souls. However, if one were to take a look through the galaxy network, they would discover that the invasion of the Een souls was not an isolated event, but rather a frequent occurrence. News of Een souls invading was revealed from various places in the universe, and in the case of the Mountain Sea Heaven, it was even worse. The doors to the netherworld had opened once more, and countless Een souls rushed out, attacking cities and plundering lands. Wherever they occupied, the air would be dense and baleful. The environment was changing drastically, developing to become more like the netherworld. This was a serious threat to all living beings. With the imperial clans as the leader, they once again joined forces with the holy lands of the universe, forming an alliance to fight against the Een souls. However, the living realm was like a sack that was riddled with holes. Previously, it would have been fine as long as it was not filled with water. It looked like the universe was peaceful, but now, it seemed like Een souls would run out from every place, causing great chaos in the world. The netherworld's second large-scale invasion began, and the universe descended into chaos. Thankfully, this kind of experience had happened a few dozen years ago. Thus, under the leadership of the imperial clans, the various forces in the universe began to resist in an orderly manner. The Lord of the Blood Sea and the other supreme elites didn't appear. Correspondingly, Buddha Doga also didn't appear. It was as if they had reached a tacit agreement. Neither side would send any top-notch elites. Not only did pseudo-emperor-level elites not appear, but even saint-level elites didn't appear. Thus, though this was a super large-scale invasion, and it was not just limited to the mountain sea heaven in terms of danger level, it was actually not as dangerous as the first time. It was as if the netherworld wasn't worried at all, and they were planning to advance slowly and steadily. Ling Han was extremely worried. The first time the Een souls invaded, a Een saint had said that they were all chess pieces on the chessboard, and were only at the mercy of others. Using a saint as a chess piece, and in fact using the netherworld and living realm as a chessboard, what kind of huge game was this? These were truly troubled times. Ling Han sighed. The peace of the two realms that Buddha Doga had fought so hard for was now in shambles again. Now, there were cries of anxiety from all over the universe. Though the battle prowess of Een souls had been weakened in the living realm, there were really too many of them, so the pressure was really great. The saints didn't dare to step out. If the living realm sent out a saint, then the netherworld would also send out the Een saints accordingly. Furthermore, all of them were unafraid of death. If they were no match, a good few of them would rush forwards to self-destruct by burning the holy flame. So what if they were saints? They would still be dragged down with them. Thus, at present, only those with battle prowess on the level of Venerate tier were rampaging unhindered in the two-realm battlefield. This seemed to be a state of tacit agreement from both sides. The living realm was waiting for the birth of a new emperor. As long as a new emperor appeared, they would naturally be able to suppress the chaos of the universe. The netherworld and Een souls would be no problem at all. As for what the netherworld beings were waiting for, only the mighty figures of the netherworld would know. In short, a rare peaceful situation had appeared in the living realm. All the races and forces had set aside their old grudges and grievances, and joined hands to fight against the Een souls. The most important battlefield was still the mountain sea heaven. The other battlefields were only small skirmishes, and the connecting point between the two realms Jer was too small. The powerful Een souls couldn't come out at all. As long as they set up a formation and sent someone to stand guard, they would basically be fine. But the mountain sea heaven was different. There was a massive hole torn in this place. To say nothing of saints, even a great emperor would probably be able to pass through. Otherwise, with how strong a great emperor was, a sliver of his aura would be able to shatter the passageway. Thus, the number of Een souls that came out of the mountain sea heaven was naturally the highest, and the number of Venerate tier-level Een souls was chillingly high. The Imperial Clan Alliance issued a notice, calling on all those who had ambitions to head to the mountain sea heaven to resist the Een souls. This was not for nothing. Killing Een souls itself would be rewarded by heaven and earth. Of course, the number of kills definitely had to be large. If one only killed a few dozen or a few hundred, heaven and earth would not be moved. Additionally, the Imperial Clan Alliance would also tally everyone's battle merits, and based on their battle merits, they could redeem items from the Imperial Clan Alliance. The range of things that could redeemed was wide. There were cultivation techniques, celestial medicines, formation techniques, pill recipes, and so on. As long as you had enough battle merits, you could basically redeem anything. Except for the Imperial Scroll and the Imperial Technique. This was definitely a secret that would not be passed on. There was no way that the Imperial clans would be so generous. At present, all the elites in the world were heading towards the mountain sea heaven. Killing the Een souls itself would be rewarded by the heaven and earth, and they would also be rewarded by the imperial clans, so why not? The large black dog and the others were also restless, urging Ling Han and the others to set off. Ling Han didn't waste any time. He continued to run around, setting up formations everywhere and sealing off the connecting points of the two realms. He still hadn't caught his breath yet. All right, there is one last place. After we have set up the formation, we will set out to the mountain sea heaven, Ling Han said. This caused the large black dog and the others to cheer. A few days later, Ling Han had also dealt with the last place. He didn't shoulder the safety of the world, and he was only a 6-star sect master. He didn't have that much power yet, but within the range of his abilities, Ling Han still wanted to do his best. We can't go to the mountain sea heaven like this, Ling Han said. The large black dog nodded. Little Han has made too many enemies. If we run over like this, we would definitely be killed by the imperial clans. To hope that the imperial clans would prioritize the bigger picture and repay evil with good and fully nurture Ling Han to become emperor. What a joke. Even if they were afraid of the words of the public, they would still secretly kill Ling Han. The little azure dragon immediately sneered. Old Black, you speak as if you don't have many enemies. The large black dog had a toxic tongue, and his enemies were no less than Ling Han's. Hung. The perverted pig rolled his eyes, meaning that, four-legged snake with a cheap mouth like you is not much better, bastard. All of a sudden, the four of them fell silent. They should not accuse each other of things they themselves were guilty of. The four of them were the type to attract animosity. Even if there weren't 10,000, there would be 8,000 that wanted to kill them. Disguise. Definitely. Let's go. Brother Monkey walked over with his staff. His expression was filled with indifference. Everyone set out. Resisting the Een Souls this time not only concerned everyone, but killing the Een Souls would also reap tangible benefits. Thus, as long as one's cultivation level was on the celestial path, they would all be mobilized. There were too many people, so Brother Monkey couldn't transport them with him. Thus, most people still used transfer formation, and everyone would meet up outside of Mountain Sea Heaven. A dozen over days later, Brother Monkey brought Ling Han, the large black dog, and a few others to the purple gauze planet outside the Mountain Sea Heaven. From here, there would be occasional flashes of light in the universe, which was incredibly dazzling, and the area that the Mountain Sea Heaven was originally in had become a mass of black, and was still spreading out in all directions. The purple gauze planet was a bridgehead at the front lines. Here, there were official troops established by the Imperial Clan Alliance, as well as freedom fighters who were unwilling to be restrained, and were only willing to keep to themselves. But it was all right. As long as they were there to kill Een Souls, they could ride the warship into the universe every day, and battle with the Een Souls there. If one wanted to obtain battle merits and redeem treasures from the Imperial clans, they could obtain a small item for free. After wearing it, one could absorb a portion of the power of the Een Soul when the wearer killed the Een Soul. This item would automatically calculate the Een Soul's power based on the strength of the Een Soul's power, and from there, calculate the battle merits. Of course, because he had absorbed a portion of the power of Een Soul, the heaven and earth reward that he could receive from wearing it would also be slightly lesser, but it was really lesser by a very small amount and could be ignored. Ling Han and the others all went to collect a small item like this. They decided to enter the universe by ship on the second day, and battle with the Een Souls. A day passed very quickly. Ling Han, Brother Monkey, and the others all queued up and boarded the warship. They had disguised themselves and planned to hide their identities. Of course, they would keep a low profile as much as possible. Of course, Ling Han believed that with Brother Monkey's temper, he would definitely be exposed in less than 3 minutes in a fight. Thus, Brother Monkey, Ling Han, and the others were not on the same warship to avoid dragging Ling Han and the others down with him. In any case, Brother Monkey was a Venerate tier elite. Furthermore, it was unknown whether the Battle Saint Emperor was still alive or dead. No one knew whether this old Saint Emperor would suddenly charge back from the edge of the universe one day. Thus, as long as Brother Monkey did not commit any heinous crimes, then no matter how displeased the Imperial clans were, they would only have to swallow their anger. He was strong enough to do as he liked, and did not need to have too many reservations. If Ling Han and the others separated from Brother Monkey, Brother Monkey would be able to do as he liked. After bidding farewell to Brother Monkey, Ling Han and the others boarded the warship and flew into the universe. Their journey was very simple. There was only Ling Han, the large black dog, the little azure dragon, and the perverted pig. They were either sect master level or spirit transformation true lord. It could be said that they represented the strongest battle prowess on Ling Han's side. Ling Han had sent the 7 babies to protect the Empress and the others. These people would come via transfer formation, so they naturally would be slightly slower. The warship soon entered into the universe, and seeing that the battlefield ahead was getting closer and closer, the atmosphere on the ship also became tense all of a sudden. "Haha! A bunch of new recruits," someone mocked. "It's not that I want to say this, but if you guys are so nervous, you'll definitely die in less than 10 minutes on the battlefield." This made everyone even more nervous. This involved their own life and death, so who wouldn't be nervous? "This big brother, do you have any experience to impart?" Someone who was thick-skinned immediately asked. The person from before put on a laid-back expression and said with a smile, "How could there be any experience? It's just a chaotic battle. Most of the time, you don't even know where the attacks are coming from. Therefore, you have to find a small team first and cooperate well." Everyone nodded and went off to find their teammates. Meanwhile, the veteran soldier shook his head. This was a last-minute effort, so how could they cooperate? With the assault of the Insol army, these people would definitely flee for their lives. However, those who managed to survive would be useful. They could be recruited into the official troops, firstly, to familiarize themselves with the terrible battle, and secondly, to know that only by gathering together for warmth would they be able to survive, and only then would they truly obey commands. He was one of the eyes and ears, discovering valuable freedom warriors. His eyes swept over them, and he faltered slightly. He saw 4 people who were different from the others. Not only did they not converse with the others to form a team, but there was not the slightest bit of nervousness on their faces, as if they were not going to battle the Insols, but rather going for a picnic. "You guys are really too relaxed, aren't you?" He nodded internally. These 4 people either had astonishing abilities, or had too high an opinion of themselves, and did not realize at all how terrifying Insols could be. However, he did not speak out of turn, because he was only an observer. It wasn't long before they neared the edge of the battlefield. The warship stopped and did not go too deep. If they went any further, the warship would be attacked. This was only a transport ship, and did not have too strong a defense. "Everyone, leave the ship!" one of the sailors shouted. Some people immediately jumped out of the ship's deck and rushed into the battlefield, but there were also some people who looked afraid. It was possible that they had come with hot blood in their hearts, and had lofty aspirations, wanting to establish an outstanding meritorious service. However, after they really came here, they surveyed the surroundings and realized that this was practically a living hell. The entire battlefield was covered with corpses. Some were complete and some were incomplete. Severed arms, legs, and heads covered this area, causing one to feel apprehensive just by looking at them. Those with weaker mental endurance were about to throw up. As a result, a few women on the ship had already begun to vomit. Even 2 men couldn't hold themselves back. Ling Han nodded at the large black dog and the others. The 4 of them leaped out at the same time, heading towards the battlefield. "Let's move separately." The 4 of them were too strong. If they gathered together, they would be too eye-catching. Ling Han charged into the battlefield, and instantly, 4 Souls charged towards him. They were merely cauldron forging tier level, so they weren't even qualified to have him attack them. Ling Han strode forwards, and the 4 Souls rushed over, immediately shattering into pieces. He was slightly disappointed. Although there were many Souls here, there were none that could reach sect master level. Furthermore, there was a mixture of cultivators fighting. There were Souls as well as living beings. When he attacked, he would definitely have reservations, and could not kill all of them together. This place was clearly not suitable for him. He had to go ahead. As he passed, Ling Han didn't hold back either, killing all the Souls in his way. He advanced forwards, and the level of Soul gradually increased. True Self tier or even Spirit Transformation tier appeared. This was still not what Ling Han wanted. He advanced further. In this area, whether it was the living cultivators or the Yin souls, their numbers were considerably lesser. They were all sect master level. Ling Han looked ahead. There were still venerate tier-level battles there. The Imperial Clan Alliance adopted a strategy of setting up layers of defenses, sparing the weak and concentrating on the strong. The venerate tier elites stood at the front lines, followed by the sect masters, the spirit transformation tier, and so on. With this kind of selection, the Yin souls were also separated. The strongest elite had been blocked at the first line, and then the sect master was at the second line. Coincidentally, they both had their own opponents. Although there were many sect masters in the living realm, living beings needed to rest, so they couldn't battle all the time. Thus, the sect masters had to be divided into several groups. One group would attack and the others would rest. Then, they still had to leave behind a portion of people for mobility. This group would have to go wherever they needed reinforcements, and also to prevent the Yin souls from suddenly increasing the intensity of their offensive. On the other hand, the Yin souls didn't need to rest, and they wouldn't be injured either. They could battle continuously, and added with their absolute advantage in numbers, in this kind of war, even the sect masters of the living realm would have to match at least 2 Yin souls at the same time. Thankfully, the Yin soul's own battle prowess was slightly inferior, and added with the fact that this was the living realm which had weakened a portion of their abilities, the sect masters of the living realm would still be able to hold on if it was 1 against 2. However, the battles were still as intense as before. Occasionally, there would be people who were severely wounded or even killed. After all, Yin souls were not idiots either. Why do I have to fight 2 against 1 evenly? Can't I fight 4 against 1? Or 10 against 1? Both sides suffered heavy casualties, but the Yin soul army was unafraid of death, while the living realm army couldn't be so unafraid of death. Thus, their morale was far inferior. At this rate, how many days could the living realm last? Thankfully, the Imperial Sons also joined the battle, especially the Golden Generation. Similarly, sect masters, they were too strong, and it was not impossible for them to fight 100 alone. They moved unhindered, invincible. Ling Han also charged out. In his eyes, these Yin souls represented treasures that could increase his cultivation level. He was very reserved and did not use his full strength, but he was too strong. He could still kill a Yin soul with a few punches and kicks, as easily as could be. After killing several thousand Yin souls, he finally received a reward from heaven and earth. An incredibly pure energy surged into his body, causing the 6th golden thread on his fruits of cultivation to become slightly deeper. Invigorating. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Going by the rate of killing Yin souls, he would only need about 10 days to advance to 7 stars. However, after fighting for only 4 days, the Yin soul army suddenly withdrew. Ling Han had no choice but to retreat back onto the warship. The warship was almost empty. In the past, there had been a ship full of people, but now there was only 1/3 of them. Furthermore, this was also the total number of people that this warship had transported from the 4 heavenly realms. In other words, out of the people from the 4 heavenly realms, only 1/3 was left. Just how high was the casualty rate? Could not be helped. This warship was carrying new recruits, and they had completely not been baptized by war, so how could they not suffer heavy casualties? However, those who survived would rapidly grow. If they did not die after a few great battles, they would be able to become elites. On the ship, everyone was silent. Some were numb, some were excited, and some were terrified. These were all normal reactions. That veteran soldier was still observing, and had memorized the appearances of these survivors. The warship returned to the purple gauze planet. Everyone went to rest and reorganize. The Yin souls would make a comeback soon, and by then, they had to face it in their best condition. After disembarking from the warship, the sun was shining brightly. Everyone was filled with the feeling of having survived a calamity. Bathing in the sunlight, feeling that they were still alive, a great many people cried out, "Ha! I've advanced by a minor level. Though I have sustained a considerable injury, the internal injuries that I have sustained in the past have disappeared. My martial arts foundations have become even more solid." Multiple voices rang out, filled with excitement. As long as they didn't die in battle, they would definitely be able to obtain benefits. Ling Han, the large black dog, and the others also left. They found a place to rest and reorganize. If they battled against Yin souls, the stronger they were, the greater their gains would definitely be. Thus, the large black dog and the others were all overjoyed. In the face of such pressure, even the pervert pig had no choice but to stay alert and fight seriously, because he did not want to die. 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, and very soon 10 days had passed, but the Yin souls actually did not launch a new wave of attacks. No one breathed a sigh of relief. Instead, they all became even more nervous. The longer they accumulated power, the more terrifying the explosion of the Yin soul invasion would be in the next wave of attacks. Thus, there was a large rock weighing down on everyone's chest, and it was getting heavier and heavier. On the 17th day, masses of Yin souls suddenly rushed out of Mountain Sea Heaven. It had begun. On the Living Realm side, the Venerate Tiers, the Sect Masters, and the Spirit Transformation Tier True Lords all rushed into space at the first instant. They didn't need to take a warship. That would only delay their progress. The others couldn't. They had to use the warship as a means of transportation. After all, the minimum requirement for flying physically was core formation tier, but this kind of speed was too slow. By the time they flew into the depths of space and faced off against the Yin souls, the battle might be almost over. This time, Ling Han didn't waste any time and immediately shot into the air. It was not only Purple Gauze Planet. From the 17 planets surrounding the Mountain Sea Heaven, elites flew out to meet the Yin souls. Ling Han hadn't used the Phoenix Wing's divine flight. This was far too eye-catching. If it wasn't a life-and-death situation, he definitely would not use such an ultimate technique. He was using the imminent skyline. Although it was a saint technique, its speed couldn't be considered slow either. But in this way, he was inferior to those imperial sons. They all rushed in front of him, and were the first to face the Yin souls. Ling Han frowned. He was always suppressing his abilities, so how could he compare to the imperial sons? Since one had entered into battle later, and the efficiency of his slaughter was low, he would definitely kill a great many fewer Yin souls. Now, the top prodigies were all fighting with all their might, striving to be at the forefront. In that way, the possibility of becoming emperor was naturally higher. They had no choice but to compete because there were really too many prodigies of this generation, such as Ding Shu in origin. Which one of them did not have the aptitude to become emperor? Thus, once Ling Han fell too far behind, then even if he was more freakish, he could only sit by and watch another become emperor. This won't work. Ling Han shook his head. But what could he do? He couldn't help but turn his gaze even further away. What if he intercepted them there? He was indeed at the level of Sect Master. Theoretically speaking, he couldn't possibly be a match for Venerate Tier. However, against a Yin soul he had a crushing advantage. Destructive energy. Thus, even if he encountered a Venerate Tier Yin soul, he would not be afraid. In fact, he could even kill it. All right, I'll go there. Ling Han was filled with confidence, because even if he was besieged by Venerate Tier Yin souls, or even encountered the Yin Saint, didn't he still have the Primal Chaos Extreme Lightning Tower and the Purple Calamity Grains? This gave him great confidence. He would do as he said. After venturing deep into the battlefield, he didn't linger in battle at all. When he arrived at the Sect Master level battle area, he immediately used the strange shadow steps and continued forward. Very soon, he had passed through the Sect Master level battlefield and arrived at the area where the Venerate Tiers were battling. He saw Brother Monkey, who was wielding a metal rod that was radiating with golden light. He was invincible. Very good, Brother Monkey should have gained a lot. His abilities improved rapidly. Ling Han smiled knowingly and continued onwards. Very soon, he had also passed through the Venerate Tier level battlefield. There were many Yin souls here, and their abilities varied greatly from Foundation Building Tier to Venerate Tier level. Ling Han appeared. This time, he had no scruples. This is my battlefield. My world. Boom, he threw a punch and 19 streaks of regulations shone. Instantly, a massive vacuum appeared ahead of him. All the Yin souls that were in the path of his attack were all turned into ashes. When they saw a living being, They didn't need anyone to command them, and the nearby Yin souls all charged over with a whistle. Ling Han humphed as he unleashed his murderous aura. Pa pa pa. The Yin souls in the surrounding area were instantly annihilated. The efficiency of this massacre was too high. However, those that he had insta-killed naturally could not possibly have Yin souls that were too strong. Thus, Ling Han had temporarily not received any reward from the heaven and earth either. Yin souls completely had no concept of death, and pounced one after another. After battling for a while, Ling Han felt a powerful aura approach. This was a Yin soul of the level of Sect Master. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, appearing incredibly fierce. Ling Han smiled faintly, and with a punch, this Yin soul died. Ling Han, who had reached the level of a 6-star Sect Master, found it truly hard to find a match for himself among Sect Masters. Most opponents would only be insta-killed by him. Someone like Di Wuji was really too rare. Furthermore, it was not that his own strength that was really strong enough to stand against Ling Han. Die! 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 In just over 10 minutes, Ling Han began to receive rewards from heaven and earth. His cultivation level began to increase, and the golden patterns on the fruit of cultivation became deeper and deeper. Going by that logic, I would be able to reach peak stage 6 stars in 2 days at most. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Fighting like this was more fun. A solemn expression appeared on his face. This was because he could sense an incredibly powerful aura that far surpassed his own. Venerate Tier. He looked into the distance, and saw a Yin soul that was as tall as 300 meters was rapidly approaching. It had the body of a goat, its horns golden, and actually had a sacred air about it. When the Venerate Tier arrived, how would a Sect Master be able to block him? Ling Han gave a loud shout and made the first move. He shot out a punch and destructive energy boiled. Faced with a Venerate Tier-level existence, his 2 slivers of 7-star regulations were not enough at all. Thus, he completely abandoned them and used all his spiritual power to stimulate the destructive energy. Boom! The destructive energy was unleashed, turning into a ball of light that was even darker than darkness itself. At an incredibly fast speed, it blasted towards the Venerate Tier Yin soul. The Venerate Tier Yin soul had never imagined that Ling Han's attack could be so fast. At this moment, it was already impossible for it to dodge. It could only clasp its front hooves in front of its chest. It didn't matter. It could easily block the attack of a mere Sect Master. However, when the force of the punch arrived, this Yin soul finally realized that the situation was not good. Its defense was completely useless in front of this energy. Pong! The destructive energy surged past, and that Venerate Tier-level Yin soul was instantly destroyed. If others saw this, their eyes would definitely pop out in shock. That was because though the Yin soul's battle prowess was not strong, its defense was very high. This was not reflected in the strength of their physique, but rather that they could immediately heal after being injured. Of course, their battle prowess would also decrease accordingly, and had to be compensated by devouring other Yin souls. Hence, killing Yin souls was very troublesome, and they needed to be shattered bit by bit. But in front of Ling Han, this Yin soul was killed with a single punch, and directly turned into ashes. Yet Ling Han was completely unconcerned. He squinted his eyes, feeling the arrival of the rewards from heaven and earth, circulating in his body, making him feel incredibly pleased. Come, again! He released a battle cry, and the Phoenix Wing's divine flight was used, traversing among the Yin souls. There was no need for him to make a move at all. He only had to channel the destructive energy onto the Phoenix Wings, and wherever he passed, an absolute vacuum would appear in the Yin soul masses. This destructive power was really strong enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The Yin souls naturally could not possibly sit by and watch him slaughter like this. Very soon, another Venerate Tier Yin soul arrived, and launched an attack at him. Even if the Yin soul's attack was weaker, it was still Venerate Tier level after all. Ling Han didn't dare to face it head-on, and simply used Phoenix Wing's divine flight. In any case, you can't catch up to me. However, wherever he passed, it was still a feast of slaughter. Taking advantage of being unexpected, he would still blast out destructive energy towards the Venerate tier level Soul, but after suffering a loss once, the Soul would naturally be on guard and dodge at the first instant, causing Ling Han to be unsuccessful. It was fine. Ling Han chuckled. He couldn't trick elites of Venerate tier, but Sect Master level Souls would not be able to escape even if they wanted to. He killed to his heart's content. No soul could stop him. And in the distance, the elites at the Venerate tier and Sect Master battlefield all discovered that the pressure on them was becoming lighter. Souls were clearly still surging over like floodwaters, but strangely, the number of Sect Masters and Venerate tiers among them had decreased considerably, greatly reducing their pressure. What was going on? The battle had only progressed for a day, and the Soul troops were about to retreat? That's not right. This time they had held back for more than half a month. That should have been a very powerful wave. Why were there signs that the battle would end after a day? They had never imagined that someone was standing in front of them, attracting the pursuit of a great many Venerate tier level Souls, and in the case of Sect Masters, those in this direction were more or less dead. Ling Han wasn't nailed to a single spot. He continued to move around, circling around the mountain sea heaven, trying to attract as much aggro as possible. He was also very careful. In front of a Venerate tier Soul, he could still come and go as he pleased, and even had the ability to counterattack. However, once a Saint made a move, he would definitely be in trouble. Thus, he was always prepared to face a powerful enemy with the purple calamity grains. What surprised him was that the Souls seemed to really be very well behaved. No matter how many Sect Masters he had killed, and even 3 Venerate tiers had been killed, no Saint appeared to stop him. After battling for 3 days, Ling Han received enough rewards from heaven and earth, advancing his cultivation level to peak stage 6 stars. At this time, there was no way for him to retreat. This was because he had already revealed himself. If he ran back with a large group of Souls, who wouldn't recognize him? The good days had just begun, and there was absolutely no way that Ling Han would want to destroy his disguise so quickly. He definitely had to maintain his composure. It didn't matter. His cultivation level could no longer increase, but the rewards from the heaven and earth were in all aspects. Spiritual power, physique, life force, and so on could all continue to improve. This battle lasted for a whole 9 days. The Souls finally announced the withdrawal of troops, and the remaining Souls immediately retreated back to the mountain sea heaven. Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief and also went back. He used the strange shadow steps to hide himself. With his present strength, even Venerate tiers might not be able to discover him. As the number 1 assassin organization, the Battle God Palace was indeed quite capable. Ling Han did not return directly to the Purple Gauze planet. Instead, he boarded a warship. He wanted to break through on the warship. Coincidentally, this was the warship that he had boarded for the first time. The veteran soldier was slightly surprised to see Ling Han. That was because he had not seen Ling Han board the ship. He should have boarded another warship, he said to himself, and came up with an answer himself. However, as a freelance soldier, being able to survive 2 battles, this ability and survivability was very good. He walked over, sat beside Ling Han, and asked, "How should I address you, brother?" Ling Han glanced at him. Ji Wuming. This sounded like a fake name. Who would be called Wuming? However, the veteran soldier didn't care. It didn't matter what Ling Han's name was. He only wanted to strike up a conversation. "Brother Ji, to be able to survive 2 great battles, your survivability is truly amazing," he complimented. Ling Han smiled and said, "It's nothing. As long as you hide in the back during battle, you can do the same." Holy fuck! The veteran soldier instantly lost his cool, feeling incredibly awkward. What difference was there between you and a fucking deserter? And he was still so self-righteous? Was that very honorable? The veteran soldier was rendered speechless. If this kind of person joined the official army, wouldn't he be bringing disaster to others? He stood up and left. Ling Han smiled and began to prepare to break through to the 7-star Sect Master level. He had been engaged in bloody battles these past few days. Moreover, the advancement of his cultivation level had come from the rewards of heaven and earth, so it was only natural that he hadn't suffered any side effects. After accumulating his cultivation for half a day, he was already confident that he could achieve victory, breaking through to 7 stars. The warship had already returned to port, and everyone disembarked one after another. However, Ling Han was still in seclusion, so he naturally did not move. No one paid attention to him, because they had already heard from the veteran soldier that Ling Han was a coward. After entering the battlefield, he would hide at the back and take advantage of the situation. This kind of person, who would pay attention to him? No wonder no one had seen him during the battle. Ling Han naturally wouldn't care. His mind was completely focused on breaking through. 2 days later, Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes. The Dao fruit tree had grown by a significant amount again, and a 7th golden thread had also appeared on the fruit of cultivation. 7 stars. Ling Han strode forwards. He had not even disembarked from the ship when he saw a large number of cultivators rush over and board the ship one after another. Needless to say, it was definitely the Souls that had launched another attack. Alright, there was no need for him to disembark. He could directly head into space. Ling Han stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking towards space. With his present vision, he could vaguely see the boundless number of Souls in space. Just how long was this war going to continue? Seeing his solemn expression, the people on the ship all scoffed. Fuck, you're an army deserter. So why are you pretending to be so compassionate? The warship arrived. Charge. Ling Han strolled slowly. After reaching 7 stars, he could fire out 20 flashes of regulations with a single strike. What kind of concept was this? In the past, on the Imperial path, the greatest test for a sect master was only to deliver 20 flashes of regulations with a single strike, and this was still the result of a venerate tier suppressing his cultivation level. Judging by the situation that Ling Han had seen, to say nothing of Golden Generation, even such ancient prodigies like Yang Yihuan and Di Wuji could only fire 18 regulations with a single strike at most. Yet when Ling Han was now a 7-star sect master, he had already reached the limit of 20 flashes of regulations. Obviously, he would definitely be able to break this limit. Among those on the level of sect master, there was really no one that was his match. He still charged to the front lines, harvesting souls and obtaining the rewards of heaven and earth, rapidly increasing his cultivation level. This time, he again attracted the pursuit of a great many venerate tier elites. However, even if he had increased his cultivation level by a minor level, there was no qualitative change in his battle prowess. It was impossible for him to directly possess strength that could match venerate tier level. Thus, he could only focus on roaming around and fighting, finding opportunities to kill enemies. This battle lasted for a whole 10 days. Ling Han could pat his chest with certainty and guarantee that there was definitely no one who had gained more than he had. Whether it was the number or quality of souls he had killed, he was definitely the undisputed number 1. Could not be helped. He had destructive energy, which was a super weapon against souls. As for Ding Shu and the others, indeed, they also possessed destructive energy, but firstly, it wasn't complete, and secondly, they didn't have a life-saving trump card like Ling Han, who dared to venture deep into this area to battle. Thus, it was definitely Ling Han who was the most awesome. He had no intention of publicizing it at all, and was silently making a fortune. The battle ended, and Ling Han returned to the warship, sitting quietly. He had no intention of publicizing it at all, and was silently making a fortune. The battle ended, and Ling Han returned to the warship, sitting quietly. He hadn't contacted the large black dog and the others for so many days, and he was sure that the Empress and the others had already arrived. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry. As long as these people weren't aggressive, they could completely handle the battle with ease. It should be known that the 7 babies had been sent by him to protect the Empress, Hu Niu, Ling Shi, and the others, so how could anything possibly happen? Seeing Ling Han come back alive again, the people on the ship all thought him shameless. After wave of battle, the veterans were further reduced in number. With every battle, a large number of people would die in battle, so how could the people on this ship be an exception? Precisely because of this, they looked down even more on Ling Han. Everyone else was fighting and bathing in blood. But what about Ling Han? He hid at the back and was a shameful deserter. If it was not for the fact that everyone was completely exhausted after the battle, and only wanted to have a good rest, it was probable that some impatient and hot-tempered people would throw Ling Han off the ship. Half a day later, the warship returned to the Purple Gauze planet. Everyone disembarked one after another, looking for a place to rest. Additionally, some people had also accumulated enough battle merits and could redeem treasures from the Imperial clans. Ling Han took a look. His merit points had reached 20 million. He didn't know how many merits others had, but based on the number of souls he had killed and their high level, this number should be extremely shocking. Let's go and take a look at the Imperial clans and see if I can redeem a few portions of celestial chi. Though his advancement was fast enough, he did not mind at all if it could be faster. Furthermore, if he had no use for it, couldn't he give it to the Empress and the others? Hey, stop right there. Ling Han had not taken a few steps when he was stopped. He looked over, and there were a total of 3 people blocking his way. All of them had their chests bared, looking like hooligans. There were actually ruffians here. Seeing that Ling Han had stopped, one of them said, "Hand over the scoring device." The so-called scoring device was a small item used to tally battle merits. The Imperial clans did not give it this name. It was unknown who had called it that first, and when it spread out, it became publicly acknowledged. Realization dawned on Ling Han. This scoring device was not tied to the identity of the wearer. Thus, others could completely take it and use the battle merits inside to redeem treasures. Hee, you guys have also progressed with the times, huh? The transition is quite fast. Ling Han smiled and said, "All right." He was extremely cooperative and handed over the scoring device. The 3 of them faltered upon hearing this. So smoothly? This guy is a deserter, so it's normal for him to be afraid. Moreover, he definitely doesn't have many battle merits, so he doesn't care. Pay, how unlucky. The 3 of them shook their heads. However, Ling Han had already handed over the scoring device, so they were no longer interested in making things difficult for Ling Han. They turned around and left. Ling Han didn't stop them, and he simply counted in his mind. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the distance. "Let's see how many points that brat has," one of them said. They had snatched something, so they should at least see how much it was worth. The person holding the scoring device nodded. No matter how small the ant's leg was, it was still meat. "Let's take a look." He picked up the scoring device and looked at it. Involuntarily, he couldn't help but gape. Fuck! My eyes must have blurred. He kneaded it a little, then looked again. Nothing had changed. 20. Over 20 million. "Hey, what nonsense are you spouting?" the person beside him asked. Then he snatched the scoring device over, and his eyes swept over it. Fuck! The third person wore a dumbfounded expression. "What's wrong with you people? It was just a scoring device. Was there any need for you guys to make such a big fuss? What are you two playing at? I'm warning you, don't team up to trick me." He also grabbed the scoring device. With a look, the corners of his mouth instantly twitched madly. We're rich." In an instant, the 3 of them exclaimed at the same time, stomping their feet in excitement. More than 20 million battle merit points, this was a huge sum that drove them crazy. Fuck, in future, I'll buy 2 alchemical pills at a time, eat one, and throw the other one away. The same was true for spirit tools. He could hold one in his hand and another at his waist. For no other reason than the fact that he was rich. After a moment of excitement, one of them suddenly shivered. "No, we have to return the scoring device." "Are you crazy?" The other 2 shouted at the same time, looking at him like he was an idiot. Over 20 million battle merit points. That person forcefully suppressed his greed and analyzed. Just think, what kind of strength would be needed to be able to obtain more than 20 million points? The remaining 2 immediately fell silent and then looked terrified. That's right. It was not that they had not been on the battlefield before, but after 3 battles, the battle merits that each person had obtained was only slightly over 100 points. From this, it could be seen just how many Een souls had to be killed to achieve a battle merit of more than 20 million, and just how strong a Een soul would have to be able to accomplish that. This kind of person must be a supreme elite, whose abilities far surpass them. Had he just found this? One of them whispered. If he really was that powerful, why did he give us the scoring device? How could it have been picked up? The first person shook his head. For such an elite, how could he lose something? True. It should be that guy that is deliberately testing us. If we are greedy. The three of them stopped talking, their eyes filled with fear. Let's go back. The three of them obediently returned, and saw that Ling Han was still standing where he had been, a faint smile on his face. This caused their hearts to clench, and they increasingly felt that they had done the right thing. Otherwise, if they fled with the scoring device, they would probably not be far from becoming corpses. Please spare us, Lord. The three people respectfully returned the scoring device to Ling Han. Ling Han caught it and smiled faintly. What is it? Have you suddenly turned over a new leaf? He wasn't afraid of these three people fleeing at all. With how powerful his divine sense was, where could these three people run to? Moreover, didn't he still have control of the ley lines? It's all because of your brilliance, my lord, a large man said with slight excitement. Under my lord's brilliance, we finally repented, and thought that our actions were too inappropriate. Fuck! You're far too shameless. His two companions gritted their teeth. They had not thought that the other would say such mushy words. This made them want to throw up. Ling Han smiled brightly and said, Flattery will never be denied. Come, flatter me more. Who knows? If I'm in a good mood, I won't call you guys to account. Lord, you are like the red sun in the skies, shining wherever you are. Your divine might is invincible, and wherever you go, Een souls will all be turned into ashes. With your participation, this battle will definitely be recorded in history, and shine for all eternity. The three of them hurriedly began to curry favor. In any case, they would do whatever was mushy. If they spoke too much, they would naturally have immunity, and would not keep thinking of throwing up. Ling Han smiled sheepishly, and interrupted them, asking, What are your names? Lu Xing, Feng Xingwang, Gu Taihua. The three of them hurriedly announced their names, and at the same time, there was also some hope in their eyes. If they could get Ling Han's support, would they be able to do as they liked in the future? The next time the Een souls invade, come find me at the warship number 754, Ling Han said, then strode off. Thank you, Lord. Lu Xing and the others were overjoyed. They had really gotten a powerful backer. Ling Han walked all the way, and soon arrived at the treasure exchange office set up by the Imperial Clan Alliance. For the convenience of the cultivators at Purple Gauze Planet, there were many such exchange places. However, for first-timers, they could only choose what they wanted to trade for first. Then, the staff here would deduct your battle merits, and make you wait for a few days. Then, they would bring the redemption items from the headquarters, and hand them over to you. Thus, this redemption office was not very big. In fact, there were only 2 staff members, one old and one young, and they were both men. Seeing that the young man was busy, Ling Han found the old man. From the looks of it, this old man should be the person in charge of this place, and the young man was only his subordinate. If you want to redeem something, make your choice first. Once you've made your decision, hand the scoring device over to me. Without waiting for Ling Han to speak, the old geezer directly handed over a small ball, appearing to have no patience. Ling Han picked up the small ball and probed it with his divine sense. Instantly, images spread out in his mind. They were all introductions to various natural treasures, god tools, alchemical pills, and so on. At the bottom was the merit points that were needed to redeem them. He was only interested in celestial chi, and kept searching. Not long after, he discovered a page of celestial chi. From 1 star to 8 stars, but 1-star celestial chi only needed 1 million battle merits, while 8-star celestial chi needed as much as 15 million. Theoretically speaking, if celestial chi was 1 level higher in quality, its value was more than 10 times higher. Thus, if 1-star celestial chi could be redeemed with 1,000,000 battle merits, then in conversion, the redemption value of 8-star celestial chi would be overwhelmingly high. This was clearly unsuitable. No matter how precious 8-star celestial chi was, it should still be something that could be touched, right? However, one couldn't reduce the value of 1-star celestial chi to a level that everyone could redeem according to the ratio. In that case, even the imperial clans would become poor. Thus, they could only set a high price. 1,000,000 merit points was something that most people could only see but not reach. Only a very small number of elites could achieve this, and 10,000,000 merit points and above was enough to drive anyone to despair. Aside from Imperial Sun's origin Ding Shu and the others, how many other people could reach this level? If it was them, wasn't this what they should deserve in the first place? Thus, the Imperial clans were actually very thorough in their considerations. Seemed fair, but in truth it was not fair at all. However, they had overlooked Ling Han. Ling Han found this strange. Why didn't he see Yang Yihuan, Feng Miaoling, or He Luo? With their strength, they could not only kill Yin souls to increase their cultivation level, they could also earn some merit points to redeem treasures, so why didn't they? He thought to himself, but did not hesitate. Instead, he placed the ball and the scoring device on the table and said, "I have decided. I will choose 8-star celestial chi." Pooh! The old man spluttered, his face filled with shock. "You've probably lost your mind, haven't you? 8 stars celestial chi. How many battle merits did it need to be redeemed? 15,000,000. Even if you had been killing Yin souls since birth, and continued to do so until you died, being able to accumulate 1,000,000 battle merits was already very impressive, and you actually dared to ask to redeem 8 stars celestial chi that was worth 15,000,000 merit points? Was he an idiot? Shoo! 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 The old man waved his hand, his expression extremely unfriendly. He thought that Ling Han had either gone mad, or was deliberately toying with him. Ling Han frowned and said, "According to the rules, I'll choose the items to redeem, and you'll be responsible for deducting the battle merits. Also, to tell me when I'll come and retrieve the items. Why don't you follow the procedure?" Ha ha ha! The old man couldn't help but laugh loudly, but there was no hint of a smile on his face. "Brat, are you really going to make a big fuss out of this? Then I might as well tell you. To dare to play around with a member of the Imperial clan, that is a crime punishable by death." There were still some other cultivators at this redemption point. When they saw the two of them suddenly start arguing, they all cast their gazes over. The old man gave a simple explanation, which immediately caused everyone to laugh loudly. Who didn't know the price of 8-star celestial chi? Those were some of the most expensive items among the redeemable items, and could instill fear in others just by looking at them. If it was a Venerate tier elite or a Golden Generation elite that had come to redeem it, then everyone could still accept it, but you, an average-looking brat, ho-ho, this was practically a joke. Have you gone mad? Dreaming about being a peerless elite for too long. He even deceived himself. Brat, your mother told you to come out to help. After the fight, you should go home. A considerable number of people began to mock him, feeling that an extreme character like Ling Han was really rare. Ling Han also smiled and said, "Hurry up. Deduct the battle merits. I'm still busy." Pooh, this naturally drew ridicule from the masses again. TSK, TSK, TSK. This guy actually made a joke sound so serious. It was indescribably funny. All right, I would really like to see what kind of shocking battle merits you have obtained. The old man humphed and picked up the scoring device from the table. He emphasized the word shocking, which naturally caused a great many people to roar with laughter. Some people looked at Ling Han with eyes filled with pity. Sai, what was the point? Running in front of so many people and embarrassing yourself. Does your mother know about this? Fuck! The old man picked up the scoring device, and with a sweep of his divine sense, he couldn't help but curse. His face was filled with shock. Holy fuck! More than 20,000,000 battle merit points? Fuck, who could believe this? The old man was immediately dumbfounded, and the expression on his face seemed to have frozen. What was going on here? Everyone was curious. You only took a look at the scoring device. How did you become like this? Could it be that it was poisonous? Otherwise, no matter how low his battle merits were, there was no need for him to have such an expression, right? Heaven-defyingly high battle merits? Hey, don't live in a dream. How could there be such a possibility? What are you standing around for? Ling Han knocked on the table, his expression impatient. Only now did the old man come back to his senses, and looked at Ling Han with a confused and uncertain gaze. More than 20 million battle merit points. How did this guy get it? He was certain that even if it was the golden generation, their current battle merit value would only be over 1 million at most. Compared to Ling Han, this was only a fraction. Thus, how could he believe that a nameless nobody had actually defeated the golden generation? Moreover, it was a crushing defeat. However, this was indeed a scoring device issued by the Imperial Clan Alliance. What method had this brat used to change his score? Or could it be that this brat's luck was heaven-defying, and he had picked up the scoring device that had been left behind by a supreme elite? As for how the latter could have happened, he did not know, nor did he care. It was enough for him to know that there was just a sliver of a chance. In short, these 20 million battle merits definitely couldn't have been earned by Ling Han. He was absolutely certain of this. A smile appeared on his face. It was time for him to make a fortune. This smile was immediately withdrawn. The old man's expression immediately became stern, and he shouted loudly, "Good one, brat. You actually dare to steal someone else's scoring device. Do you know that this is a serious crime?" "What? Stolen?" Everyone exchanged looks, and came to a sudden realization. The score on the scoring device was definitely very high, and did not match Ling Han's strength at all. That was why the old man was first stunned. Ling Han was well aware of this, and he said calmly, "Next, are you going to detain my scoring device, and spare me this once on account of my first offense?" "Spare you? In your dreams," the old man balefully said. His name was Pei Kwa, and he belonged to the Crimson Rainbow Imperial Clan. Of course, he was only a peripheral character in the clan. Otherwise, he would not have fallen to the level of guarding the exchange point. However, if he took advantage of others, who would dare to say anything against him? More than 20 million battle merit points could be exchanged for a lot of treasures for him. Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle, saying, "You're even more black-hearted than I expected." Not only did he want to snatch his battle merits, he even wanted to punish him. Did he think he was an easy target to bully? "Guards! Guards!" Peikwa shouted loudly. Though he was also a true self-tier as a dignified member of the Imperial Clan, how could he possibly make a move personally? This would be too demeaning of his status. Very quickly, 2 guards came in. They were both in the core formation tier. "Capture this evil criminal and send him to the Public Order Office." Peikwa pointed at Ling Han. The 2 guards immediately raised the spears in their hands and aimed them at Ling Han. As guards, they were treated fairly well. These 2 spears were both spirit tools, and under their control, the tip of the spears glowed. If Ling Han showed the slightest sign of resistance, they would attack him without mercy. Ling Han shook his head and asked with a smile, "Why am I not the slightest bit surprised? Obediently follow us so you won't suffer. In fact, you might even lose your life," a guard said. Ling Han moved, grabbing out at that guard. "How dare you!" The 2 guards activated their spirit tool without hesitation. Xiao, 2 streaks of green light immediately shot towards Ling Han. However, when the green light reached Ling Han, it automatically crumbled, and Ling Han had already grabbed one of the guards. With a toss, he threw that person out. He did the same thing and threw out the other guard. These 2 guards were lying outside just like that, unable to get up again. Hiss! Everyone was stunned. At first, they had thought that Ling Han, who was average-looking, should be a nameless nobody. No one had thought that his strength would actually be so strong, capable of toying with core formation tiers in the palm of his hand. Was this a high-level core formation tier or a true self-tier? If he were a true self-tier, he would already be qualified to be called an elite. Peikwa was also slightly surprised. He had not thought that Ling Han's strength was far beyond his expectations. A thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that this battle merit was really obtained by Ling Han? However, it was only an instant, and he immediately shook his head. Impossible. Even the Golden Generation had only obtained over 1,000,000 battle merits. What right did Ling Han have to surpass the Golden Generation? Was there any law? Was there any logic? Humph. No wonder he dared to be so arrogant. As it turned out, he still has some abilities. Pei sneered and stretched out a hand to grab Ling Han. He was slightly irritated. He was a member of the Imperial clan, and to have him lower himself to personally make a move on him was practically demeaning him. Pa! A crisp sound rang out, and Pei's face had already sustained a solid slap. What was going on? Everyone was a little stunned. When had Ling Han made his move? Who had seen it? Pei himself was also very confused. He looked at Ling Han, then flew into a humiliated rage, and once again launched an attack. Pa! Another slap. Crisp and loud. Fuck! Another slap? Everyone turned to look at Pei and saw that both his cheeks were very swollen. There was a hint of purple in the green, and a hint of black in the purple. It was as if they were filled with congested blood, and could spurt out at any moment. When they looked at Ling Han again, their gazes were different. 2 consecutive slaps meant that Ling Han's strength was far superior to Pei-Kua's. But it should be known that Pei-Kua was a true self-tier. To be able to toy with the true self-tier in the palm of his hand, what kind of cultivation level would that have to be? You, how dare you? Pei-Kua was about to cry. He was a member of the Imperial clan, and he was already so old, yet he had been slapped in public. How could he accept this? Heh! You know how to feel wronged? Ling Han said with a cold chuckle. Pa pa pa. He continued to slap, saying, Then why didn't you consider the consequences when you tried to swindle me and even send me to prison? Only you can harm others, and others are not allowed to resist? What kind of logic is that? Pa pa pa. Ling Han's hands didn't stop, and they continued to deliver slaps. Pei-Kua was slapped so hard that blood was spurting from his mouth and nose. Soon, his teeth were also sent flying, and his whole face was even smashed, revealing ghastly white eyes, his 2 eyeballs practically popping out. How tragic. Yet Ling Han did not feel the slightest bit of sympathy. Fuck, if it was not for the fact that he was very strong, wouldn't he really have been scammed and suffer injustice for nothing? Who would pity him? He had brought this upon himself. Since you're so shameless and want no face, I'll help you slap it off. Everyone inhaled sharply. Things had progressed to this point, so how could they not understand? Pei-Kua probably saw that Ling Han's merit points were high, and misunderstood that he did not have much strength or background, so he wanted to rob him of his merit points. In the end, he just had to kick an iron plate. Thinking of this, everyone felt like they had a common enemy, because this kind of thing could possibly happen to them as well. Beat him to death. It was unknown who called out. This drew the resonance of a great many people, and they all called out. Right at this moment, someone from the Imperial clan arrived. When a member of the Pei clan had met with an accident, it was naturally the Crimson Rainbow Imperial clan that had come. Stop! The visitor was a middle-aged man, but his abilities were much, much stronger than Pei-Kua's. He was a spiritual transformation tier. That was enough. Yet Ling Han acted as if he had not heard anything, and continued to thrash him madly. I told you to stop. The middle-aged man felt slightly embarrassed. He was a spirit transformation true lord. Furthermore, he came from the Imperial clan, which had a natural glory. Even if he went to the Holy Land, who wouldn't treat him as an esteemed guest? Now, he had already spoken, but there was actually someone who would not listen. Ling Han still ignored him and continued to slap him. The middle-aged man couldn't hold himself back any longer. He immediately lashed out, grabbing at Ling Han. Pa! A crisp sound rang out. It was obviously that familiar sound of a slap to the face. However, this time, Ling Han did not slap Pei-Kua, but rather the middle-aged man. What was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded. If it was Pei-Kua, he was ultimately only a true self-tier. Though he could be called an elite above the true self-tier, there were still a considerable number of cultivation levels. However, a spirit transformation true lord was also sent flying by a slap from Ling Han. There were indeed 3 levels above the Spirit Transformation tier, Sect Master, Venerate tier, and Saint tier, and there was no need to count the Great Emperor tier. Only one would appear in a single era, so there was no point to keep track of it. So, did Ling Han belong to the cultivation level of Sect Master, Venerate, or Saint? How was this possible? He was too young, and furthermore, his appearance was average. How could there be such a prodigy? However, facts speak louder than words. Ling Han was now working left and right, using his left hand to slap Pei Kwa, while his right hand was slapping the middle-aged man, both without delay. This time, the Pei clan was completely humiliated. After another while, someone from the Pei clan finally came. This time, it was naturally a sect master. He was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 50s. He was wearing a white robe, and every single hair on his head was combed neatly. "Pei Guangchen," someone said in a low voice, revealing the identity of this person. Hiss, more than 10,000 years ago. That Pei Guangchen that stirred up the winds and clouds? I remember that there was a person called Pei Guangchen who challenged the Tao Child of the various great holy lands in a row, and never lost. Afterwards, he was hunted down by the venerates of the 7 holy lands, and only then did his identity as an imperial clan elite was finally exposed. The imperial son of the previous generation of the Pei clan. Everyone whispered among themselves, all of them looking fearful. The imperial clan was already frightening enough. What more when it was the imperial son? Meanwhile, Ling Han was astonished. An imperial son, who was already so old, was only at the level of the sect master? He immediately laughed in spite of himself. If every imperial son could charge up to Venerate tier or even Saint tier, then the strength of the imperial clan would really be too exaggerated. In truth, it was also very difficult for the imperial son to reach Saint tier. This would need power that was accumulated for a great many generations. Otherwise, since saints could live for millions of years, and generation after generation of imperial sons continued to become saints, just how astonishing would the number of saints in every imperial clan be? Sect mass level was indeed a little weak, but it was acceptable. Pei Guangchen looked coldly at Ling Han, his eyes filled with killing intent. To humiliate the imperial clan like this, no matter what, Ling Han's only fate was death. Furthermore, the image of the imperial clan could not be tarnished. What more when if this matter spread out, it would affect the image of the whole imperial clan alliance. Who else would fight with all their might? You see, not only would his battle merits be coveted by others, he himself would also be beaten and killed. Thus, he definitely had to push all the blame onto Ling Han, insisting that he was a petty thief. "Kneel," Pei Guangchen said coldly. As the previous imperial son, he was naturally extraordinary. He had long since cultivated to the level of 9 stars, and his battle prowess far surpassed the level of Tao Child. He was filled with confidence. If he made a move, Ling Han would definitely have to bow down to him. Ling Han smiled calmly. "Is this the attitude of your Pei clan? Or the imperial clan alliance? Your people want to steal my battle merits, and when they did not succeed, you all jump out in waves to help him. Haha. This kind of behavior is really shameless. If you can't bear to part with the treasures, then don't hypocritically come up with some scoring device. How embarrassing." When these words fell, a great many people nodded. At first, they had not known the truth, but now, they were all on Ling Han's side. They felt as if they were experiencing it themselves. Some people didn't mind making things worse, and turned on the connection device, broadcasting live on Galaxy Network. All of a sudden, the number of people paying attention skyrocketed. A great many people were protesting online, expressing their support for Ling Han. Who wouldn't be furious if this happened to them? Of course, there were also some people who were curious about Ling Han's identity. Who was this guy? He clearly looked ordinary, but his abilities were quite strong. No matter how strong he is, there is no way he could match Imperial Sun. Though Pei Guangchen's talent is inferior to those Imperial Sons of the present generation, he must have cultivated to 9 stars long ago. Tao Child of the same cultivation level is far from being his match, so how is that person supposed to block him? Using his life? Everyone thought that Ling Han's path of resistance would end here. The higher-ups of the imperial clans were also paying attention to this matter. They were very angry. Their subordinate had actually done such an unreliable thing. But now that things had come to this, what else could they do? Guangxin, execute that person immediately. Don't let him make any more comments. At present, the entire galaxy network is paying attention to this matter. A mighty figure communicated a command to Pei Guangxin through divine sense. Pei Guangxin nodded and showed a cold smirk. Making an enemy of the imperial clan. I really don't know where you get your courage from. He moved, launching an attack at Ling Han. Pa! It was only a single punch, and Pei Guangxin immediately sprawled out on the ground, his limbs twitching continuously. If you're strong, you're naturally courageous, Ling Han said calmly. His voice was filled with arrogance. However, he had displayed absolute strength, so who would care if he was showing off or not? There was only endless admiration. Heavens, even the imperial son of the previous era had been knocked down with a single punch. These abilities were nature-defying. Ling Han stretched out a foot and placed it on Pei Guangxin's head. He asked calmly, "Who are you going to send next?" "Venerate Tier." No one responded. Now, the matter was getting bigger and bigger, and the whole universe was paying attention. If they still sent out a Venerate Tier, then the whole world would really be in chaos. If Pei Guangxin could kill Ling Han, then Ling Han's strength would only be SOSO. How could he possibly obtain a battle merit that would make others dumbfounded? However, even Pei Guangxin was easily defeated, and Ling Han's strength had been completely proven. This kind of strength was still not worthy of such a high battle merit? You imperial clans are really too much of a bully, isn't it? Only a while later, an old Venerate Tier from the Pei clan came, but did not make a move. Instead, he politely apologized to Ling Han, promising that he would severely punish Pei Kwa. Ling Han smiled, and very decisively let them go. There was no way that he would really commit murder. Otherwise, it would give the imperial clans an opportunity, and they would send Venerate Tiers or even saints to kill him. At present, everyone in the world was on his side, and the imperial clans would also have to be wary of the mouths of the masses. After all, saints needed the power of belief. If they broke their word, who would still believe in the imperial clans? The Venerate Tier from the Pei clan had also brought over a portion of 8-star celestial chi, which he personally handed over to Ling Han. He didn't need to wait for a few more days. When he came into contact with Ling Han, he also used his divine sense to scan Ling Han. Ling Han was far too powerful, far too powerful. Thus, the Venerate of the Pei clan was naturally suspicious of his identity, and thought that it was possible that it was Ling Han in disguise. If they confirmed that it was Ling Han, they would move quietly, kidnap Ling Han, and search for all the secrets on him before killing him to prevent him from leaking the secret. However, with the help of the soul-forming technique, the Venerate couldn't see anything off at all. Ling Han took the celestial chi and immediately left. In the meantime, he changed his appearance 3 times, moving with strange shadow steps and star steps, and finally he even used the void beast hide to conceal himself. In this way, if he would still be targeted by others, then he would have no choice but to accept it. In public, it was impossible for anything to happen to him, because if anything happened, it would naturally be blamed on the imperial clans. For the present war situation, this would be too great a blow to their morale. Here's another 9 stars celestial chi. Ling Han smiled. This should be able to help Brother Monkey create the strongest pillars of 4th extreme. Of course, to concoct the 9 Emperors 10 Leaves pill was naturally no big deal for him. Now, a great many people were discussing him. Who exactly was he? And what cultivation level was he in? I'm guessing that it's highly possible that he's a Venerate. And otherwise, how could he have subdued Pei Guangxin with a single move? He had initially wanted to keep a low profile, but he never thought that he would be bullied by a minor character. Haha! Let everyone know about this. Don't underestimate minor characters. Who knows? They might be just wanting to show off. For the moment, no one suspected that it was Ling Han in disguise. This matter naturally made Ling Han even more displeased with the imperial clans, but he immediately set it aside. He first concocted the 9 Emperors 10 Leaves pill, and then handed it over to Brother Monkey, helping him cultivate his cultivation level to perfection. After waiting for a few days, the Yin souls attacked again. Ling Han arrived at the warship that he usually boarded. Then he saw Lu Xing, Feng Xingwang, and Gu Taihua. Lord Ling. When they saw Ling Han, they paid their respects. Ling Han nodded and boarded the ship first. Lu Xing and the others hurriedly followed behind him, automatically positioning themselves as servants. Today, the warship was still filled to the brim. There were the veterans that had survived the last few battles, as well as the rookies that had just joined, and the rookies still did not know the cruelties of battle. They were discussing excitedly over there. Rookies, don't be too excited. When we get to the battlefield, you will realize just how cruel that place is, an elder said. The rookies were naturally unconvinced. They were hot-blooded, young, and full of confidence. However, after hearing the seniors talk about the specific process of the few battles, these rookies were all moved. Some of them even revealed looks of fear. After a few battles, out of 4 full ships of people, now there were actually only 50 people left of the initial number. Just how cruel was this? However, if you guys can learn the true essence of a certain person, to say nothing of surviving 3 battles, even 300 or 3,000 battles wouldn't be a problem. A veteran suddenly said slowly. What? The rookies were all curious. The veteran from before pointed at Ling Han. There. This is the one. Ha 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 ha. All the veterans laughed loudly. This was naturally a sarcastic remark. It was a mockery of Ling Han's escape every time. Lu Xing and the others were enraged. He actually dared to slander their lord. However, seeing Ling Han remain calm and collected, they forcefully suppressed their anger. The rookies didn't know, and a few of them were even asking Ling Han for guidance out of curiosity. They had all come to obtain benefits and battle merits, so who would want to die? Ling Han hadn't even spoken yet, when a few veterans couldn't help but laugh loudly, revealing the truth. This instantly made the rookies feel ashamed. Fuck, so he was a deserter. No wonder it was said that he could survive 300 battles or even 3,000 battles. The funny thing was that the level of people on this ship was too low, so there was not a single person that had Galaxy Network's connection device. Otherwise, with Ling Han's current level of popularity, there would definitely be people that would recognize him. That was suspected to be a venerate, and you guys actually dare to mock him. Are you tired of living? Lu Xing finally couldn't bear it any longer. He slammed a hand on the table and stood up. All of you, shut up. Ha ha ha. The rookies were still laughing loudly. They didn't recognize Lu Xing, so they were naturally unafraid. However, a great many seniors recognized Lu Xing and the others, and they all shut their mouths. These 3 people were not to be trifled with. All of them were in the Ultimate Tao Foundation. Try and laugh again. Seeing that Ling Han didn't object, Feng Xingwang and Gu Taihua both stood up and shouted at the rookies. We're laughing. So what does it have to do with you guys? A rookie was stubborn. Sure. They're not to be trifled with. A veteran kindly introduced Lu Xing and the others. These 3 guys specialized in picking foundation building tier cultivators to rob, yet nothing happened all this while. This was proof of strength. After hearing about Lu Xing and the others' great achievements, the rookies all cowered. Perhaps there were some among them whose abilities were not inferior, but it was better to have less trouble, so what was the point of attracting trouble? However, no one understood why Lu Xing and the others would stand up for Ling Han. Could it be that this was their new underling? However, what was the point of taking in such a deserter? They did not speak on the way, and everyone was very silent. It wasn't long before the warship arrived at its designated location. But right at this moment, something happened. Not good. A great Yin soul is approaching us. Fire! Fire! The terrified voices of the sailors were suddenly heard. Everyone rushed onto the deck, and what they saw caused their expressions to change. There was a Yin soul that was as tall as 300 meters charging towards them, and on the way there was also a warship that had already been destroyed. It floated in space, corpses and wreckage everywhere. A ghastly sight. This is sect master level Yin soul. Heavens! How did such a great monster get here? We're done for, we're done for. Everyone's expressions were ashen. It was said that Yin souls did not have strong battle prowess, but that was only relative. If a sect master made a move, they would definitely be annihilated in an instant. The warship that had been destroyed in the distance was clear proof of this. It must have been the doing of that great Insoul. A great many rookies were crying. This was really dying before they had even gained any benefits. Only Lu Xing and the others were slightly calmer. They all looked at Ling Han. This guy had earned more than 20 million battle merits, and who knows, he may be able to deal with a sect master level Insoul. Ling Han was also a little surprised. Under the layers of defense, there were actually still some that slipped through the net. In an instant, that great Insoul had already charged over and shot out a punch. They were done for. Everyone closed their eyes. The sect master level aura surged. This was a fatal blow. Pong! There was a loud bang. But they didn't feel the arrival of doomsday? They all opened their eyes, and then saw a scene that caused their scalps to go numb. This great Insoul had already been blasted into pieces, and there was presently a person that was slowly withdrawing his fist. Ling Han. Heavens! At this moment, everyone didn't know whether they should be excited, grateful, ashamed, or something else. They were all dumbfounded, and didn't know how to react at all. You guys just wander around nearby, Ling Han said to Lu Xing and the others. Yes, Lord Ling. Seeing Ling Han move with their own eyes, Lu Xingxing and the others naturally worshipped Ling Han to the core. When they agreed, even their backs were straight. When everyone saw this, they were all filled with extreme regret. Ling Han leaped out of the warship and used the imminent skyline, which was extremely fast. He was willing to give Lu Xing and the others a chance. That was because he hoped that everyone could do their best in the matter of fighting against the Insouls. Though the power of a mere few people was limited, if everyone in the world was willing to step out, so what need was there to worry about Insouls being indestructible? As usual, he charged into the innermost depths and began to reap kills. His abilities had advanced to another level, and even if there was no qualitative change, Ling Han's battle prowess had still increased considerably. Killing Insouls was even easier for him. This was mainly because he had previously been stuck at the peak stage of 6 stars and didn't break through. Thus, the rewards from heaven and earth had become a boost to his soul and physique. This was also a huge benefit. For example, stimulating regulations and high-level energy required spiritual power. The stronger the spiritual power, the faster the regulations would be stimulated, and the more high-level energy there would be, and the more destructive power it would have on Insouls. Ling Han had no qualms. The Phoenix Wing's divine flight was used, and he shuttled through the Insouls. His fiery wings fluttered with destructive energy, and Insouls would die at the slightest touch. There was absolutely no doubt about it. If a saint didn't appear, he was unstoppable. So what if it was a venerate tier? They wouldn't be able to catch up to him at all, and it was possible that he would counterattack and take advantage of the opening to kill them instead. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han had resolved the battle single-handedly, at least under the premise that the Yin Saint did not appear, he had really dealt with a great number of sect master-level Insouls and held back 1/3 of the venerate-level Insouls. It would not be an exaggeration to say that this kind of merit was great. Unfortunately, no one knew. Ling Han didn't mind. He didn't do this to make his name resound throughout the world, but rather because the invasion of the Insouls would affect everyone, and he was duty-bound to do so. His deeds, whether good or bad, would be left for future generations to judge. Present, he only wanted to live on and live well. This battle lasted for more than half a month. With a large number of rewards from heaven and earth, Ling Han's cultivation level had already reached the middle stage of 7 stars. At this rate, 8 stars was already not far away. He returned to the warship. At this moment, everyone was looking at him with reverence. This was an awesome character that could kill sect masters with a single strike. Who would dare disrespect such an elite? The hierarchy of cultivation was cast in iron. Ling Han didn't say anything. He simply walked to a corner and sat down, closing his eyes to rest. Meanwhile, Lu Xing and the others stood behind Ling Han. They stood proudly, as if they were guarding their king. No one would be ashamed of their moves to court favor. On the contrary, everyone was incredibly envious. Being able to follow by the side of such an elite was a good thing that could not be obtained even if one begged. In the future, as long as they talked about today's battle, they would naturally have a share of glory as they had once followed behind a certain someone. Ji Wuming. Though he was nameless, it was destined that his name would spread throughout the world. The worship returned, and the legend about Ji Wuming began to spread like crazy. This made Ji Wuming, who had just arrived, feel very stifled. If it was another person, they would probably be very happy, being able to bask in the glory. But with how proud Ji Wuming was, how could he possibly take advantage of this kind of situation? It must be Ling Han. With Wuming as his name, there were pitifully few of them, and added with the fact that his surname was Ji, and his strength was so heaven-defying that if it was not Ling Han, who else could it be? After Ling Han disembarked from the warship, someone immediately approached him. Golden Generation, Su Jianshan. Brother Ji, I have long heard of you. Su Jianshan was very polite, and clasped his hands in greeting towards Ling Han. What have you heard about me for a long time? Even my name and appearance are fake. Ling Han cracked a smile. I am very famous now, am I not? Su Jianshan couldn't help but be taken aback. You are indeed very famous now, but there is no need for you to say it yourself, right? He was a little embarrassed, but still nodded and said, Brother Ji's name is indeed world-renowned now. Then wouldn't it be an honor for you to meet a celebrity like me? Is your heart thumping wildly? Ling Han asked again. Su Jianshan was instantly confused. I am an imperial son, and a golden generation at that. When my name was known all over the world, who knew which corner you were playing with mud in? What honor would I have? Why was this person so shameless? He took his words at face value, and was acting narcissistic now. Su Jianshan decided that he could no longer follow Ling Han's train of thought. Otherwise, he would be led astray by Ling Han. He didn't continue the topic and said, Brother Ji, have you heard of Ling Han? Here it comes. Ling Han knew that even though he had disguised himself very well, there would definitely be members of the imperial clans who would suspect that he was Ling Han. Thankfully, he had only dealt with Pei Guangxin, and the latter could not compare to these imperial sons of the present generation. Thus, only a few imperial clans were suspicious. Ling Han nodded. Of course I've heard. This person has also thrashed the imperial sons before, and it can be said that he is on the same level as me. We are both exceptional heroes. Fuck, was there any way to praise oneself like this? Su Jianshan's expression was ugly. After being stunned for a moment, he asked, Where has Brother Ji come from? Source Sea Planet? 8 Clouds Mountains. Ling Han said, then smiled. Are you investigating my background? Hee hee. The White Feather Clan hopes very much to be joined by Brother Ji. Would Brother Ji be interested? Su Jianshan extended an invitation to Ling Han. Ling Han pondered for a moment. Su Jianshan only thought that Ling Han was considering, and did not rush him. He merely waited quietly. The Su clan had only become suspicious of Ling Han, so they had placed Ling Han under their surveillance. If this person was really Ling Han, he would definitely give himself away. After a while, Ling Han finally opened his mouth and said, Do you feel honored? Do you feel like your heart is thumping? Su Jianshan faltered upon hearing this, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily twitched. He had only thought that Ling Han was considering whether he should join the Su clan or not. He had not thought that Ling Han's thoughts were so incredibly strange that he was actually considering the question that had been asked to him previously. Brother Ji, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to pretend to be stupid like this? He asked in displeasure. It was you who didn't answer my question first. So why are you saying that I'm inappropriate? Ling Han countered. Su Jianshan was instantly rendered speechless. That was indeed the case. After being taken aback for a moment, he finally said, Brother Ji's great name does indeed make me feel slightly honored. Is your heart? Brother Ji. Seeing that Ling Han was still entangled in this problem, Su Jianshan couldn't help but call out loudly, feeling an indescribable madness. Why did he feel a great desire to hit someone? Oh! Ling Han shook his head, his expression filled with disappointment. So you're not excited at all. Sigh. This really makes me sad. Don't make it sound so misleading. Su Jianshan clenched his fists tightly. He really wanted to give this guy a beating first. However, the imperial clans had already reached a consensus. Due to the huge commotion caused by the previous incident, nothing could happen to Ling Han. From a certain aspect, he was even a banner that stabilized the morale of the army. Thus, Su Jianshan could only tolerate it. Not interested, Ling Han said again. Su Jianshan was at a loss. What was he uninterested in? Then realization dawned on him. Ling Han had said that he was not interested, because he did not intend to join the Su clan. So, you were joking with me just then, weren't you? Brother Ji, are you not going to consider for a little longer? His words were very polite, but his tone had become cold and menacing. The imperial clans have never accepted no. No one would dare. Meanwhile, Ling Han's expression was filled with curiosity, and he continued to ask, "You really don't feel like your heart is beating wildly?" Holy fuck! Su Jianshan was about to go crazy. Su Jianshan looked coldly at Ling Han, killing intent flickering in his eyes. Are you toying with me? A dignified golden generation? Like a monkey? Brother Ji, do you know how most people die? He quickly suppressed his anger and asked Ling Han calmly. Died of stupidity? Ling Han asked with a smile. No, he couldn't control his mouth and died due to his own vulgarity, Su Jianshan said balefully. Ling Han nodded. Then you must control your mouth. At such a young age, don't risk your life. This, Su Jianshan couldn't help the veins on his neck popping. Fuck, that was an insult to you, all right? How could Ling Han be so stupid that he couldn't even tell? Impossible, he could cultivate to the level of sect master, and even venerate tier, so how could he be such an idiot? Thus, the other party was still teasing him. Su Jianshan suppressed the urge to forcefully make a move. Nothing could happen to Ling Han now. Countless pairs of eyes were watching. To say nothing of the fact that the imperial clans could not make a move, even if someone wanted to make a move on Ling Han, they would have to turn around to protect him. Why? Because once something happened to Ling Han, everyone would think that it was the doing of the imperial clans. Then, the hearts and morale that had been painstakingly gathered would disperse. Brother Ji, you have to know that in a battle within souls, the slightest mistake could result in death. Su Jianshan said slowly. Furthermore, stray attacks have no eyes on the battlefield. If they hit Brother Ji, ho-ho, that would not be good. This was a blatant threat. Though he did not say a single word, his meaning was very clear. If you do not concede or cooperate, then when you go to the battlefield one day to fight a bloody battle within souls, you may be accidentally wounded by your own people and die. Ling Han looked coldly at Su Jianshan. He definitely would not accept threats. So what if they were imperial clans? How many imperial sons had he killed? Then you have to be careful as well. Stray shots have no eyes, and it is possible that anyone could be hit. Ling Han smiled. It was clear that they could no longer continue this conversation. With a cold wave of his sleeve, Su Jianshan strode off. Ling Han didn't stop him. Since the other party threatened to find a chance to kill him on the battlefield, he would return the favor. Did he think that he wouldn't kill him? Time passed quietly, and another 10 days later, the In Soul army made a comeback. Ling Han boarded the warship, but the moment he boarded, he discovered that the atmosphere was a little strange. With a sweep of his gaze, he immediately discovered the reason. Su Jianshan. He was shockingly here as well. This was the imperial son of the golden generation, and his cultivation level was at sect master level. Thus, who wouldn't be stunned by his appearance here? Ling Han turned his gaze to the 4 elders behind Su Jianshan. These 4 people were expressionless, their expressions cold, as if they were carved from wood. However, Ling Han could tell from the vague aura exuding from them that these 4 old men were all sect master level, and it was very possible that they were all 9 stars. Ha! This was too arrogant, wasn't it? To publicly use 5 elites to besiege and kill him? However, these people had absolutely no idea that his present battle prowess was enough to sweep aside all opposition at the level of sect master. To say nothing of 5 sect masters, even if there were 50 or 500 of them, they would still be completely annihilated in front of him. Su Jianshan naturally saw him as well, and said calmly, "Brother Ji, you can still reconsider." Ling Han didn't say anything. He simply cracked a smile, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. Su Jianshan shook his head. Too bad. Ling Han had caused the imperial clans to suffer such a great humiliation. His only fate would definitely be death, but they could not publicly persecute him. Thus, if Ling Han were to die on the battlefield, they would be able to draw a clear dividing line between the imperial clans and his death, and at the same time boost their morale. It could be claimed to be the best of both worlds. Since Ling Han didn't agree to join the Su clan, there was nothing more to say. Die. The atmosphere on the ship was extremely tense. The imperial sun had arrived, and though he did not say anything, even if this kind of existence was just standing there, it would still exert a great pressure on others. Finally, after sailing for a while, they had arrived at the edge of the battlefield. Charge! Everyone rushed out and joined the battle. Ling Han turned around to take a look. Su Jianshan and the four elders were both standing there without moving. "Brother Ji, please," Su Jianshan said very politely. "The imperial clans owe you a favor, so the five of us will protect Brother Ji from the Yin souls. TSK. Ling Han didn't pay any heed to this. He strode forward. Su Jianshan immediately followed, and behind him, four elders followed like shadows. It wasn't long before Ling Han arrived at the sect master level battlefield. However, he didn't stop and he continued to advance. This caused Su Jianshan and the others to be stunned. Why haven't you stopped yet? If they continued onwards, that would be the battlefield for Venerate tier level. Even if they went forwards and were accidentally hit by stray attacks, they could still possibly be severely wounded. That's right. Realization immediately dawned on them. Ling Han must have been afraid of being ganged up on by them, so he took the risk, wanting to use this kind of method to make them retreat in the face of difficulties. Chase! Su Jianshan only hesitated for a moment, then immediately waved his hand. As long as they were careful, they would definitely be fine. The five of them advanced cautiously. Waves of Venerate tier-level fluctuations of power would occasionally spread over, making them feel on edge. Dangerous, too dangerous. Meanwhile, Ling Han was extremely relaxed. He had already walked this path many times. Furthermore, with his strength, even if he was really swept by a Venerate tier-level shockwave, he was completely capable of dispersing it. After a while, he walked out of this area. Behind him, Su Jianshan and the others all breathed a long sigh of relief, feeling that their backs were wet. As it turned out, unknowingly, they had broken out in a great amount of cold sweat. But after an instant, they became nervous again. Because this place was too deep into the territory of Yin souls, there were a great many Venerate tier and sect master level Yin souls. Staying here for even a second was extremely dangerous. However, Ling Han didn't give them any time to hesitate as he strode forward. Damn it! Give chase! We definitely can't let him return alive, Su Jianshan said through gritted teeth. Killing Ling Han was a mission that had been assigned to the Su clan. As a member of the imperial clan, how humiliating would it be if he couldn't even kill a minor character? Moreover, wasn't Ling Han in front? If there was a powerful Yin soul, he would be the first to encounter it. Once they confirmed Ling Han's death, they could immediately turn around and flee. Hong! 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 Yin souls barraged him. Ling Han was already brandishing his fists in battle, and the speed of his advance immediately slowed. Catch up to him and end the battle as soon as possible, Su Jianshan said. He could no longer delay, or it was really possible that he would be in danger. The four old men all nodded. The five of them sped up and set off in rapid pursuit of Ling Han. At this moment, Ling Han didn't advance any further. Instead, he turned around and looked coldly at Su Jianshan and the others. I have to say, your courage is truly amazing. In order to throw us off your tail, you actually dared to come here, Su Jianshan stated calmly. At the same time, the four elders had already dispersed, surrounding Ling Han. Ling Han cracked a smile. Why can't it be that I wanted to kill you guys, so I deliberately led you guys here? Su Jianshan faltered for a moment before roaring with laughter. He shook his head. Who do you think you are? Are you a venerate? If you weren't a venerate, what right do you have to be so arrogant? There were 5 of them, and all of them were 9-star sect masters. Furthermore, he was a golden generation. It could be said that with him as the leader, and the support of the 4 great sect masters, this kind of battle prowess would definitely surpass sect master level. If he was alone, who could compare to him? Ling Han led them into a trap? What a joke. Even if a sheep led a lion into a trap, how could it be a match for a lion? Die! He shouted loudly, and charged towards Ling Han. He was afraid that something would happen if he stayed too long. After all, there were too many Yin souls here. The 4 old sect masters naturally wouldn't hesitate either. They immediately followed after him. As a dignified golden generation, do you still need to bully me with numbers? Ling Han said with a smile as he retreated backward. Humph! Who would have the time to waste on you? Su Jianshan smirked coldly, not falling for Ling Han's provocation. However, with Ling Han's retreat, countless Yin souls instantly enveloped them, causing Su Jianshan and the others to be heavily surrounded. Of course, Ling Han was the same. The number of Yin souls he faced was even more. Scram! Su Jianshan shouted loudly. He shot out punch after punch, and brilliance shot into the skies, lighting up this dark universe. As expected of the golden generation, he used regulations, and not a single Yin soul could withstand a single blow from him. If venerates didn't appear, who could rival him? He continued to charge forward, rapidly closing the distance between him and Ling Han. You want to use the Yin souls to impede us? I have to say, you are very bold. However, in front of absolute strength, what meaning is there to it? Yin souls, could they stop him? This was absolutely impossible. On the other side, though the abilities of the 4 old sect masters were slightly inferior, they were still members of the Imperial clan, after all. Their battle prowess far surpassed the average 9-star sect master, and they similarly charged over, continuing to maintain the position of encircling the 2 of them. They gradually shrunk the encirclement, and watched as Ling Han was like a turtle in a jar. Ji Wuming, do you regret it now? Su Jianshan asked balefully. Ling Han cracked a smile. My name is not Ji Wuming. Su Jianshan could also guess. After all, his name was Wuming. This was too deliberate. No matter who you are, you will not be able to escape death today. He charged over, and delivered a palm strike straight at Ling Han's face. 16 streaks of regulations turned into sharp blades, interwoven with high-level energy, wanting to slice Ling Han in half with a single strike. At the same time, the 4 old sect masters also launched fierce attacks, preventing Ling Han from breaking through from any angle. However, did Ling Han want to break out of the siege? He raised his fist, and in an instant, shot out 4 consecutive punches, heading towards the 4 old sect masters respectively. Pong! 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 With every punch, an old sect master would explode, turning into a rain of blood that filled the skies. Huge amounts of energy exploded, annihilating the Yin souls in the surroundings. Fuck! Su Jianshan's attack came to an abrupt stop, his eyes filled with terror. In fact, even his body was trembling slightly. The 4 old sect masters had actually been obliterated with a single punch? How was this possible? He could barely believe his eyes. This was too much of a shock to his tolerance level. If he moved, he would indeed be able to defeat those 4 old sect masters, but it was definitely not something that could be done in a single move, and it was even more impossible that he could insta-kill them. What kind of colossal gap in strength was this? You, who exactly are you? If it was not for the fact that a venerate had confirmed that Ling Han was sect master level, he would have suspected that the latter was a venerate. Ling Han cracked a smile. I thought you didn't care? Su Jianshan gritted his teeth. With how strong you are definitely not some nameless character. See. Just now, I wanted to reveal my identity, yet you refused to know. Now you're asking me again. Tell me, aren't you despicable? Ling Han asked. A thought flashed through Su Jianshan's mind, and he blurted out, You are Ling Han. Putting aside abilities, There should be no one other than Ling Han who had such a toxic tongue. Ling Han's expression was filled with disappointment. Why was it so easy to guess his identity? Does this count as my character crumbling? He murmured. If it was only Su Jianshan, then he would just kill him to keep the secret. He could still use Ji Wuming's identity to continue killing Yin souls and earn battle merits. Ling Han, you are really outrageously bold, Su Jianshan said balefully. The whole universe is looking for you, yet you are strutting around, and actually came all the way here on your own. Ling Han wagged his finger, and while he was at it, threw out a punch, destroying a great number of Yin souls that were attacking him. Wrong, wrong, wrong. The only people who cannot tolerate me are only imperial clans like you all. You all cannot represent the people of this world. Su Jianshan also casually waved his hand, destroying a large number of Yin souls. His eyes flickered. If they fought, he was definitely no match for Ling Han. Thus, he definitely couldn't face him head-on. However, in terms of speed, Ling Han had grasped Phoenix Wing's divine flight, and in a situation when their cultivation level was equal, how could he compete with the world's #1 movement technique in speed? Moreover, the environment here was already half netherworld. He couldn't contact the elites of his clan, so it was impossible for him to call for reinforcements. Thus, he had to run back, running until he could send out a signal. Once a venerate arrived, it would be Ling Han's turn to flee for his life. He no longer hesitated, and immediately turned around, his heart filled with humiliation. He was a golden generation, synonymous with being invincible among his peers. Only he could look down on others. When had he ever fled in such a panic? However, a figure flashed, and another person appeared in front of him. Flames danced wildly, exuding a soaring fighting spirit and killing intent. Ling Han, Phoenix Wing's divine flight, the world's fastest speed. Su Jianshan humphed lightly, and hurriedly launched an attack at Ling Han. He knew how difficult it was to escape this time, so he was also mentally prepared for a bloody battle. If necessary, he would not hesitate to pay a certain price. Ling Han smiled faintly, and also threw a punch, blasting towards Su Jianshan. This punch was too fast. Pong! Su Jianshan was instantly sent flying, and countless Yin souls took advantage of the opening to pounce over, wanting to snatch his physical body. Scram! Su Jianshan roared loudly. His whole body exuded a blazing sword ray, which instantly destroyed all the Yin souls that had pounced towards him. Pooh! However, he was still throwing up blood madly, appearing very miserable. It was mainly because Ling Han's punch was too domineering, directly wounding his organs. This had already caused him great injury, and he still had to forcefully endure his injuries before launching another attack, which naturally caused his injuries to worsen. Thankfully, he was a golden generation, and his physique was extremely tough. Otherwise, he would be 10 times worse off now. Without another word, Su Jianshan immediately began to run again. With a flash, a person appeared again in front of him. Naturally, it was still Ling Han. Still running? Ling Han asked with a smile. Su Jianshan gritted his teeth, his gaze slightly panicked. He knew that Phoenix Wing's divine flight was fast, but before personally experiencing it, he had not thought that it would be so fast to such an astonishing extent. This was practically enough to make one lose all hope. Ling Han, he said heavily, yet did not know what else to say. Beg for mercy? That was impossible. He had come to kill Ling Han, and hoped that Ling Han would repay evil with kindness? Didn't he know that this guy would not blink an eye at killing Imperial sons? He didn't want to die at all, but what should he do? Do you regret it? Ling Han asked with a smile. Humph! Do you want me to beg for mercy? Su Jianshan smirked coldly. Impossible. There are no cowards in the Imperial clans. Ling Han shook his head and said, No need to be stubborn. Your eyes have already betrayed you. Su Jianshan shouted loudly, and once again began to flee. As long as he could flee to a place where there was a signal, he would be able to contact his family, and it would only take an instant for venerates to rush over to help. Thus, he definitely couldn't give up. As long as he didn't die, there was still hope. But in front of Ling Han, no matter how much he struggled, it was all in vain. Every time he broke out of the siege, Ling Han would always appear in front of him at the first instant. He would throw a punch and send him backwards. He charged dozens of times, yet shockingly discovered that he was actually just circling around in the same spot. At this moment, he finally lost all hope. The gap in strength was too wide, and his speed was completely inferior. How could he escape? Su Jianshan roared in fury. Boom! Imperial blood surged. He was really going all out. Even if he had to die, he was going to die a vigorous death. Ling Han nodded and said, "Seeing as you're so prepared, I'll give you a quick death." Boom, he threw a punch and destructive energy surged. Without a doubt, Su Jianshan was instantly sent flying, but to Ling Han's surprise, Su Jianshan didn't turn into a shower of blood. It was not that Ling Han was violent, but rather that the force of his punch was really too overbearing, and it was very difficult for him to reserve power. But look at Su Jianshan. Though his whole body was gushing with blood, he surprisingly did not die. This was very shocking. Under the influence of destructive energy, even substitution seal was ineffective. Moreover, Ling Han's battle prowess was far above Su Jianshan's. So why hadn't he died? Ling Han looked at Su Jianshan's chest. It was completely mangled, revealing his bones, but his 24 ribs were all exuding a faint silvery light, exuding an indescribable majesty. Saintly bones. Realization dawned on him. No wonder Su Jianshan had not been killed by him. As it turned out, his bones had reached saint tier. No, it was not that his bones had reached saint level, but rather that he possessed a sliver of saint level genes. However, because saint level was really too powerful, even a tiny bit was enough to save Su Jianshan's life. When one reached the level of venerate tier, the substitution seal would be ineffective. Thus, the imperial clans had used other methods to strengthen their protection of the imperial sun. Previously, he had not used it, because what person in this world would be so outrageously bold as to dare make a move on the imperial sun? Now that the imperial sons had died one after another, the imperial clans no longer dared to have any thoughts of getting lucky, and fully armed the imperial sons. Su Jianshan himself was also slightly surprised. He had not thought that he would actually survive this punch. As it turned out, the trump card that the clan had laid out for him was actually so awesome. Why hadn't he been told earlier? True, if he had been told earlier, he would have had a way out, and would not have the determination to die in battle. And now, after a life-and-death struggle, Su Jianshan could actually vaguely see his own path of cultivation. All this while, the journey of the imperial sons had been too smooth sailing. Their natural talent was astonishingly high, and their background was also frightening, so no one dared to trifle with Rem. There was also a good thing like the substitution seal, so there was absolutely no need for them to worry about any life-threatening danger. But in truth, death was also an experience. Without experiencing the spiritual test of a moment of life and death, how could one possibly develop an indestructible willpower, and how could one possibly walk on his own path of cultivation? Thus, even though it was only for an instant, Su Jianshan could vaguely see a completely new path. This was his path of martial arts, and it may not be possible to walk it, but there was still a path to walk after all. He could feel that the barrier to his cultivation level had loosened, and breaking through to the fourth extreme was close at hand. Ha ha ha! He couldn't help but laugh loudly. This was really a double blessing. Not only had he glimpsed the path of cultivation, he had also pushed aside the barrier to break through. Ling Han, I really have to thank you, he said, but his tone was incredibly baleful. After advancing into venerate tier, the first thing he had to do was kill Ling Han. Hee, you had best give up. Ling Han shook his head and continued to attack. He had only glimpsed a sliver of hope for a breakthrough, but he was still a million miles away from a true breakthrough. Even if he was to go into seclusion now, he wouldn't be able to achieve it without at least a year and a half. Hong! 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 The destructive energy bombarded Su Jianshan repeatedly, causing the flesh and blood on his body to fall off layer by layer. Ling Han saw that Su Jianshan's backbone was like a great dragon, thick and sturdy. Looking closely, this backbone was actually formed from the overlapping of two bones. Realization dawned on him. So you have implanted a saint-level backbone. Hee. What great power! The bones of saints were naturally made of saintly material. In that case, how could Su Jianshan's bones not be tough when he implanted the saintly bones into his body and slowly absorbed the saintly particles within them to strengthen his own bones? This was easy to say, but in actual practice it was incredibly difficult. That was because if it had the word saint in its name, it was too powerful. If a sect master ate the saintly medicine, not only would he not get any benefits, it was even more likely that he would burst from the overwhelming power. It was the same for saint bones. If it was implanted into one's body, the saintly might would be activated, and the latter would only die immediately. Unless this saintly bone had the same bloodline as the one that it had been implanted in. Then, through fusing the bloodline together, there was indeed a chance that the saintly bone would hibernate, and one could slowly absorb the saintly particles. In other words, these saintly bones could only come from elites of the clan. Just this fact alone was enough to eliminate how many forces. More importantly, the backbone was a great dragon in the human body. It supported the main trunk of the body and possessed an incredibly important position. Even if saints could regrow their severed limbs, how many years would it take for them to recover after plucking out this great dragon in the human body? Thus, what saint would be willing to hand over their spine? Even if it was the imperial clan, they could only use it on the golden generation. After all, this price was too great, too great. Ling Han, you can't kill me. And once I break through to venerate tier, it will be the time of your death, Su Jianshan declared coldly. Ling Han shook his head. I forgot to tell you. I was the one who killed Lin Xian. What? Su Jianshan was instantly shocked. Lin Xian's cultivation level was venerate tier level, and the height of his natural talent could be ranked in the top 3 even among golden generations. He had actually been killed by Ling Han? However, after a moment of distraction, Su Jianshan regained his composure and exclaimed, I don't believe it. What does it have to do with me whether you believe it or not? Ling Han said with a smile. He brandished his fists and charged forward, saying, I'm simply telling you a fact. Under the heavy punches, Su Lianshan retreated continuously. His body had already absorbed a portion of the saint-level particles, so his bones were incredibly sturdy. Even Ling Han was unable to break through them. However, the destructive energy was not to be trifled with either. It still managed to cause great damage to Su Jianshan through his bones. Originally, this would have been resolved with a single punch, but now, it had become a blunt blade that was slowly damaging him. At this rate, Su Jianshan would still be unable to escape death, but before he died, he could hold on for a period of time, and in this period of time he would be tortured even more. And it just so happened that he himself was the one who had caused it. The more Su Jianshan fought, the more flustered he became. His injuries were becoming more and more severe, and had already reached a point where it was difficult for him to recover. The reason why he was still persisting was because he was really too defiant. The pride of the imperial son and the pride of the golden generation made him grit his teeth and persist, determined to fight to the last moment. Thus, he had also suffered greatly. He was beaten up for a whole half an hour, and only then was he slowly worn to death. When he died, he didn't even look human anymore. Ling Han was speechless. He indeed didn't want to torture Su Jianshan, but who asked him to be too difficult to kill? These people from the imperial clans really have a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Ling Han felt rueful. 7 great stars had been refined into Di Wuji's body, and once they exploded, his power would directly soar to 3 stars, or even 5 stars venerate tier level, and in Su Jianshan's case, saintly bones had been implanted into his body. The example of Di Wuji might be more special because it was very possible that this kind of technique was the doing of a great emperor, but there was no great emperor in this world now, so this kind of technique could not be replicated. But something like Su Jianshan should not be rare. In other words, it would be extremely difficult to kill those imperial sons in the future. Sigh! Ling Han shook his head. Unless he could advance into Saint Tier, this would definitely have some effect on him. Why are you always causing trouble for me? Ling Han studied Su Jianshan's corpse for a while. He had a feeling that there was a vague, terrifying fluctuation in that saintly bone inside Su Jianshan's body. Strange. I seem to have sensed this kind of fluctuation somewhere. Oh, that's right. Ling Han took out the broken sword. Occasionally, there would be an obscure fluctuation emanating from within, which was exactly the same as the saintly bones. It's not as simple as the aura of a saint. As for the details, I still have to ask the old man. Ling Han wanted to take away Su Jianshan's saintly bones, but discovered that he could not. This saintly bone was like a sharp divine sword. If he touched it, the only result would be that he would be riddled with wounds. This was not the saintly medicine. Though the grade of the saintly medicine was high, it did not have any destructive power, but this was different. It was showing off its full strength. Sigh. Ling Han sighed, unable to take it away. So be it if he couldn't retrieve it. In any case, he didn't like bloody bones either. Ling Han shook his head and continued to battle with the Yin souls. Right until the Yin soul army retreated, did he return to the warship. Seeing that only Ling Han had returned, everyone was incredibly stunned. Where was the Imperial Sun? Could it be? None of them dared to think further. That was really too terrifying. But did Ling Han really dare? They did not know and did not want to know either. The waters here were really too deep. Even if they knew just the slightest bit, it would bring a fatal calamity to them. The warship safely returned to the purple gauze planet. Present, it was still very calm. However, very soon, the matter of Su Jianshan's disappearance would spread out, and then his death would be discovered. Naturally, the culprit would have to be found. Ling Han was definitely the first suspect. Su Jianshan and the others had gone to hunt him down, and now that he had returned, Su Jianshan and the others had died. If they didn't suspect Ling Han, who would they suspect? I really want to see just how shameless the imperial clans can be. At present, he was a flag that everyone was staring at. If he collapsed, everyone would guess that it was the doing of the imperial clans. Thus, it was absolutely impossible for the imperial clans to make a move on him in public. No matter how much they suspected that he was the culprit who had killed Su Jianshan, they could only investigate in secret. They could either use the Yin souls to kill him, or create the illusion that he had been killed by the Yin souls. As expected, the news of the deaths of Su Jianshan and the others quickly spread out, but the Su clan was extraordinarily calm. In fact, they did not even send anyone over to question Ling Han, and acted as if nothing had happened. Several days later, the Yin souls once again began their attack. Ling Han still went to battle, reaping the rewards of heaven and earth, and while he was at it, after he had saved up 15 million merit points, he immediately went to redeem 8 stars celestial chi. His cultivation level was soaring madly. He was at the middle stage of 7 stars, at the late stage, then at the peak stage. Then he began to break through. 8-star sect master. In a short few months, he had soared from a 6-star sect master to an 8-star sect master. Ling Han had to admit that though it was possible that the Yin souls barraging the living realm would have extremely far-reaching effects, for the moment he had really profited, and it was a great profit at that. In terms of ability to kill Yin souls, no one was stronger than him. Even Venerates couldn't compare. Even if they could be compared, how many rewards of heaven and earth would a Venerate need to take a step forward? It would definitely be 10 times or even 100 times more than him, right? As the Yin souls continued to invade, Ling Han's cultivation level continued to advance rapidly. He broke through to the middle stage of 8 stars, the late stage, and the peak stage. 9-star sect master. Ling Han was very pleased. He had finally arrived at the end of the minor advanced tier. Now, he only had to kill a few more Yin souls and advance his cultivation level to peak stage 9 stars. Then, he would be able to break through to the 4th extreme and become a Venerate. If he became a Venerate, what need would he have to fear everyone in the world? So what if a saint moved? If he was no match, he could completely flee. He was filled with anticipation. He only had to advance another step further, and he would truly possess the preliminary qualifications to directly oppose the imperial clans. Of course, if the imperial clans sent out saints or even the imperial weapon, he would definitely have no option but to flee. However, unlike now, there was no need for him to change his identity anymore. He could walk around the world with his original appearance. Subsequently, he was extremely expectant of every battle, and was getting closer and closer to the Venerate tier. 9 stars middle stage, late stage, peak stage. That was enough. Ling Han planned to immediately break through to Venerate tier. If he became a Venerate, the efficiency of killing Yin souls would increase by who knew how many times. However, he shockingly discovered that he could not break through. Why? He hadn't even begun, so how could he have concluded that it was impossible? The reason was because of those chains on the fruit of cultivation. If he wanted to become a Venerate, he would have to let the fruit of cultivation transform into the 4th extreme. However, the problem was that his fruit of cultivation was now tightly bound, so how could it transform into the 4th extreme? Ling Han kept trying, wanting to break through these shackles. However, he hadn't been able to do so when he had been a 1-star or 2-star sect master. Now that he was a 9-star sect master, he couldn't do so either. These were the shackles that the heaven and earth had placed on him. As punishment for the destructive energy that he had cultivated to a complete state, they could not be broken at all. Ling Han used his spiritual power to take human form, attempting to tear off one of the links. As long as he could tear off one, he would naturally be able to tear off the second, the third, and so on. However, it was useless even if he exhausted his spiritual power. Could not be severed. He tried to use destructive energy. This thing could destroy everything, but the shackles were firmly embedded in his fruit of cultivation. Without waiting for the shackles to shatter, his fruit of cultivation would be destroyed first. Without the fruit of cultivation, then what was the point of breaking through to Venerate tier? His cultivation level would drop to spiritual transformation tier. After several attempts, Ling Han had no choice but to admit that he was really helpless against these chains. Could it be that he would be stuck at the level of a 9-star sect master for the rest of his life? True, he was definitely the strongest sect master in history, but what was the use? Was he qualified to contest for the imperial throne? There was no need for a saint. Even if a 1-star Venerate made a move, if he were to face them head-on, he would only be able to ensure his survival at most. No, there was always a way out. There would definitely be a way out.